Is Sean supposed to be coming?
Yeah, both of them actually said they were going to come.
I think she's locked. Yeah.
Oh. Hmm.
Hello. Are you over the TEALS training? Perfect. I can
How's it going?
Yes. The reason why is because I didn't get an update. I'll just send an email just saying, are we all set? Then we need to order you a badge. Okay. I just will send our follow-up email.
Okay. Great. Oh, I'm the first one here.
You are. I'll be interested to see the turnout. Well, I know of a couple people that are coming.
Okay. Well, I know Bill's coming.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
It's your day.
It's interesting. I'm house sitting for my aunt, and she lives in Pasadena, which is quite a bit away. Maybe not as far as Santa Cruz, what you're saying, but
Yeah.
it's a good distance. And I don't know. She has like far more house than she needs. It's her and my uncle, and I'm not used to a space that large, and it's a little unsettling.
Yeah. Are you the only person there?
I'm the only person there.
Mm.
And then also, she has 2 dogs, and very, very specific instructions for taking care of them. So it's
Interesting.
quite the chore. How is the rest of yesterday?
It was good.
Yeah.
What did I do? I guess I just asked a lot of people for curriculum, which was really good. So hopefully I have some things to share with people that are helpful. But yeah, it was good. Flying out tonight, so that should be good.
What area do you live in?
I live in Mountain View, in the
Okay.
Bay Area.
Okay. Okay, I know where that is then.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, my major complaint is just that it's extremely expensive.
Yeah. I blame the tech industry.
So do I, unfortunately.
I know, ironic, of course, because that's our bread and butter. But of course, they give a lot of bread and butter to a few people, and it makes it very expensive.
Yeah, it's funny. I was reading this story about the history of Mountain View and how, like, in the early '90s, it was just like a kind of like one of those like forgotten downtowns where like nobody lives, and there were like all these businesses were leaving, and then Google showed up, and now it's like the most crowded, popular, like fancy place, and I'm like, that is crazy.
It is. That's happened that's happened a lot though. Actually, like Shanghai, now it's the major metropolitan center, like China's own New York City. But in the '90s, I mean, it was like a village almost.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Yep, just us.
Wow.
So I hope you're hungry.
I'm actually starving.
Perfect.
You want me to sit here?
Wherever.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what.
Well, Dan said he was coming, so I was like, okay, cool. So whatever. And then this morning he texted like,
I was like, I'm gonna watch it.
I was like, great.
Yeah, which I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Perfect feels here.
So if it's only us three, are we gonna cut it
Doing
short or? Cause
Yeah, I mean, it might end. We might end short anyway today.
okay.
It's just like a.
Classroom.
Oh, that was
Oh.
interesting.
Oh no.
I
Went over to the classroom
Oh.
and found I couldn't get in. So
We're just finishing up whatever we didn't already cover, so it's less stuff. I think
We end around. What do you think?
between 4 and 4:30. Or no, sorry, between 3:30 and 4. That's what I would say. You guys had your first day already.
Yes.
How was it?
It went pretty good. I mean, it was mostly pretty much we talked about us, what we do, and you know, I'm very visual, so I had a big presentation, and then the other two gentlemen, you know, had one slide. They, you know, kind of. I was like, okay, whatever. And then we just got the kids signed on the computers, but it took the whole day, and some of the kids still, even when they left, didn't have a log on. And we had started a kind of fill in the blank, you know, how'd you hear about TEALS? No, the class, they call it CS something. And, hold on. Like, and there was one kid, he had transferred from another school, so he wasn't even in the whole setup of things. But I mean, we just went around and we did the whole, you know, it's called 3 before me, so you need to check with 3 of your classmates before you come to one of us. And my scenario is a little different because, you know, like one of our guys uses a program for DreamWorks, so he can talk all about our stuff. I'm government, so like I told Josh, and I think I told you, you know, we don't say, oh, this is what we do. It's more like it's more private. What I, you know, there's things I can talk about and can't talk about because I work on the fire and police side. So there's a lot of stuff that I do that I can't really verbalize. So I went and looked on like the Code, I think it's Code Academy,
Okay.
and I found some videos I thought were cool because it's like got Will I Am out there talking that he's you know he's doing coding and stuff. So
that was the video that we showed as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a good video. It's a good video.
It looks so cool. So I thought, you know, I would do that. And my situation's different because there's 3 of us. There's 2 teachers, which I'm one of the teachers and FTA, and the guys on the team, they're only available on Thursday, Friday. So it's me Monday through Wednesday, solo. And I just got an email from the teacher last night that he's going to be gone 2 days. So it's literally me in the classroom alone. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, well, and he's like, you know, Elaine, I wouldn't recommend it, but if, you know, I'm like, well, I guess I'll have to handle it. I mean, what's my choice? No, we just will skip school that day.
Which,
substitute.
You know,
right, I mean, which is like a legitimate thing, right? Because like if Josh were out and then like there wasn't TEALS, there would be a substitute and they would just do something. So like that's still an option.
Yeah.
What, is this an intro class or?
This
AP?
is intro class. There are honors and AP students in there, so they're smart
really?
cookies in there. Yeah, one's AP trig. Like,
Mhm.
wow, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm not. I always go after stuff. That's my mentality is, if I don't know it, I'm gonna figure it out. And that's kind of how I got into coding. I liked that aspect. I knew that there was more things I could do at my job if I had some programming experience.
Did you meet all this week, or are you just starting, or what?
We started Thursday, so Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, okay. Well, we started Monday, yeah.
Okay, so you had a full weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where are you folks at?
Right here.
Oh, out of this building here. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
School.
this school.
Yes, Synergy.
Synergy.
Yes.
And-
Mhm.
Was his name Philip? I just met the principal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's
Yeah.
behind me?
Yeah.
Oh, hey. I'm talking about you because I can't see you, so you're literally I'm talking behind your back. That's true. I don't know that. So,
Well, I can send you some slides we did, you know. Matter of fact, we're going to do one of them today
oh,
about
cool.
cups, you know,
Okay.
and then we started with all of the pieces of BY. Are you going to use BYOB or Snap?
You know, I didn't really look into BYOB at all, and so I did my Mario and Pong and all that stuff on Snap. And then the guys were talking about BYOB, and I'm like, fine. So I downloaded that, and then I'm like, this is so much easier. It's so much
It
easier
is.
on BYOB.
Interesting.
It really
Well,
is. And then they have a
and-
lot more costumes and stuff, so I was
Yeah,
importing my
I mean,
costumes
they're
and my
pretty
slides and
similar,
stuff.
so
Yeah,
you can
right.
go either
So,
way.
yeah. So, is there a way from Snap to import the BYOB costumes? Does anyone
was there some,
try to
well,
figure
you,
that
Well,
out?
BYOB comes with a whole set of costumes and
Yes.
sounds and everything.
Yes, but
yeah.
Snap does not.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, but so if you use BYOB, you have all those right
yeah,
there.
but isn't this supposed to be, we're supposed to be using
well, the thing
Snap?
about Snap is that
thing?
Berkeley stopped supporting BYOB, and they're like
Yeah.
continuing to work on Snap. So any
Well,
like
we-
new
Yeah.
things that come
We
out.
also found some problems. Some of the things don't work in Snap that work in BYOB. One of them was if you hide a sprite
Mhm.
in Snap, you would still get hits that the guy was there.
I know, the coins for Mario, that's what I found out. I was like, so I had to put in all these pauses,
Yeah,
so if he bounced up and because if you hid the sprite, he would get the coin, but if he bounced up and came back down, he'd get more points. I'm like, no, you're not gonna get points. So yeah, so I did. I'm doing a couple things. The teacher wants me to do, which came up in my resume. My interview or whatever. You know, I did some just games in Python programming. You know, I did the asteroid game, and so the teacher wants that for me to create that for the classroom. So I figure on one of the days that I'm solo, I thought I would just maybe put that on the board and show them what fun stuff you can do with programming. You don't have to go in and say, okay,
Some of the final projects from last year, I did see asteroids amongst them that was actually
Yeah.
done in BYOB. Would we have copies of those files?
yeah, I've got copies of those. Sure.
Would you be interested in
absolutely,
in
yeah.
that,
'Cause
instead of
I would
recreate
love
the
to.
real?
Yeah, that I had to recreate Mario because apparently I'm the only one on my team that's turning in code. I suck, really. You hold your hands together 2 days of the week, and I'm just flying out, whatever. So I do have some things. I found Josh had given me a PowerPoint about like doing lessons on Monday and Tuesday. So I found a PowerPoint, and this I can't remember where he got this stuff, but one of them is one's movement, and the other one is I think Monday's lesson is on sprites and what they are, and we're gonna move 10 spaces and do
Right.
that stuff. So I mean I
Yeah.
think that's simple enough. And then I think it's Tuesday lesson, which talks about is it the left-right movement maybe?
Well, we hook them up
And-
to keys, up, right, left, up, down.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
probably the next step.
Yeah.
Is like press the
Well,
see, here-
keyboard and
Here's what we're probably going to have them doing this week, because we had them do this last is smiley face, okay?
And is that's just in your projects, right?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
we had the students create their own. Let me see if I
Okay.
can get this working right here. Let me see, I got to get up to here. Well, let's see, I get it hit okay, it loads it.
Yeah.
Now, it's a pretty long one because we don't have any repeats or anything
Okay,
like that, so
gotcha,
it's
yeah.
just,
Okay.
but you can see, if you push it, they draw circles. This is what it looks like.
Okay. Okay.
Then you draw the outline of the face,
Yeah.
and then, This we're going to have them do this week. We're going to have this will be their weekly project, or
Okay, and you're starting week 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're full.
And
Second
they
week.
create their own. We'll teach them how to
Okay.
draw circles this week and let them do this. You can see it's some circles,
Just lots of circles.
a semicircle, and this.
Okay. Perfect.
And they draw squares and triangles and
Yeah.
all that. We did that Thursday and Friday. Yeah.
Okay. Because on Friday it was just kind of follow up from I didn't go on Friday because I went Thursday and then I'll be Monday through Wednesday,
Right.
and so it just seemed like it was just like anything happened. I think it was just follow up from logging on the day before and.
Mm-hmm.
One guy talked about
sometimes,
code.
Yeah, sometimes
Yeah.
the first week is pretty like
Yeah.
you just kids are like in and out and everyone
Yeah.
can't log in, and so it takes a while to like get going.
Where are you teaching?
Canyon High in Santa Clarita.
Oh, Santa Clarita. Okay.
But so I did like a quest after I was like hearing a lot of people being like, we don't know what to like lesson planning related. So I did like a quest over the last couple
Okay.
days to just like get a bunch of resources.
Oh,
And
awesome.
I'm gonna show it up here because it's being recorded, so hopefully other people can see it. But so I found various things. Let's see. One
There's
thing.
a people on video conference.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
it's like streaming on Hangouts on Air, which I think is amazing. So one helpful thing is the actual like UC Berkeley site for the course that we're based on.
Okay, that
And
BJC.
yeah, and so there's BJC, and that website is like okay because you can see like all the activities, and they've like got it in this weird online thing. But they have an older version of their site which has like all the before when they were like a more traditional class, and they have just like a calendar of all their lecture slides and stuff, which I think is more helpful for us. So if you're just looking at like what is the order of topics that they cover, that's kind of like here. And then they have like for certain topics they have like all their slides. And his slides, I mean, if you look at his slides, they're like a little much probably for high school. But then some of it's like super useful. So probably you would want to like take some of this and then maybe like cut some stuff out. But it's like one pretty good source of.
That
Just the slides.
resources, under that dashboard, there's a curriculum resources. I moved there's a slide up there of introduction to BYOB. Now,
Okay.
I recommend you got to make your own decision.
Sure.
Yeah, and there are a lot of.
We tried it for about a month last year. We finally gave up on it.
Using Snap.
Yeah, using
Yeah.
Snap, we gave up on it. We tried it for a bit. Well, the other thing about Snap too, it's all internet, right? So if you have trouble with your internet, or it's down, but at least with BYOB, it's on your local terminal.
Yeah,
So
Yeah. See, we'd probably have to get flash drives for them to save because there's not a lot of memory on those computers in the classroom.
what kind of computers do you have?
They're just the simple desktop.
Or you could also,
think
depending
it
on the
said
school,
there's
you
2
could
gigs
have
of
them get like
memory.
a Dropbox account or something.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, my thing with flash drives is like kids are gonna lose them, and then it's like, oh, you lost all your stuff.
Oh, my dog ate my flash drive.
Right. Now I have nothing.
Well, I mean, they can't be that small. I mean, they must have a lot of
2 gigs is what he said.
2 gigs.
Yeah.
I don't know what else
sometimes-
is on there, but
Well, sometimes it's because it's like used by the whole school. They just
It
like
is.
limit storage because they don't want
Yeah.
kids to store their stuff. But yeah, you maybe like cloud storage is probably the way to go.
but then again, you got to have the internet available to get to the cloud.
That is true. Another cool one, this one I was really excited about. So Garfield High School is a high school in Seattle that did TEALS a couple of years ago. And now the teacher like does the class himself. And so I just Googled this, and then later I like asked him more about it. He's got his entire course online, and so that's the URL for it, but I'll actually show it to you.
Well, he's using Scratch instead of.
Easy, and yeah, so the cool part, the best part about this is that it's like literally day by day. It's like Monday, this is what we're doing, here's the slides. Tuesday, this is what we're doing. So it's helpful to be like, oh, this is the order of topics, like this is how long they take. He does pretty much the same projects. He calls Mario Dance Party, but aside from that, it's like the same. he has some really, really, really cool worksheets. So like this one, and they're like very scaffolded, so it like tells kids exactly what they should do. For the most part, it looks a lot like Snap, so I think you probably just reuse it. It's like, okay, write a script to do this, and then there's questions.
Where's that URL?
So it is in the actual. So this entire thing is in week 5 on summer training, because we did stuff out of order.
Okay. And
so if you open up the Southern California, like week 5, the slides are there. And so this is the URL for this one, and it's pretty awesome, and it's reasonably well aligned to what we do, except that it uses Scratch. So there are like a few things that are weird, or that might be different. So you probably want to just like read it over ahead of time and make sure. But like aside from that, I think it's really good, and it's really good for pacing, in my personal opinion. And versus some other interesting things, like at some point he talks about like this whole thing about like how computer science is applied in current technological advances, and there's like random like other topics related to computing that he has like whole lessons on, which is kind of cool. So if you like can't do coding for a day or so, there's like stuff there too. So that's the second one, and the third one is what you sent me actually, which is this like day by day giant PowerPoint of like 500 slides.
Well, it's for a year. This was actually for a year class. But.
And I was like, this is awesome. And then I ran it by somebody else and I was like, would this be helpful? And they were like, yes, this is exactly what we're looking for. So it's like day 1. These are the slides that they did at the bottom.
They even put notes down at the bottom.
The notes are awesome about like exactly what they did. This is the classwork. This is the homework. Day 2. This is what they did. And so the difficult things about this are that like it's just lesson 1, 2, 3 in order for 592 slides. So there's no like, it's a little bit hard to organize. They do have this Excel document, which does this map perfectly? Like I think this is their plan for what every lesson is supposed to be about, and like what they're supposed to do. And then they made the slides. I think there is some disconnect. But it's like the two together are like okay.
Of course, nothing ever goes as planned.
No,
You're always
I'm sure there's
slower.
going to be a lot of ad-libbing.
And so,
Well, and that's one thing that I like about having all of this together is that if you do have to cut early, then you can. It's not as though you have to get through X amount of material in some specified amount of time.
We didn't do Space Invaders last year. We didn't do recursion. We didn't do object-oriented stuff. So
Did you replace it with something?
No, we just never got to it. It's better, I think, to concentrate on the more straightforward, simple concepts than, more, it's getting much more into computer science type stuff rather than trying to teach them the basics, I think.
yeah.
So, you got to give up something. Now, we did do a final project the first semester. We didn't do it the second semester. It seemed like the students the second semester were just slower than the ones the first semester.
And that's sort of the coolest part about intro, I think, is that like you gotta go slower, you go slower.
Like this.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you guys might.
And even Josh is a great teacher too, because he's got some tips.
So yeah, and that's like
And
if
we
you
have a great
breeze
team.
through, then you can do Space Invaders, which I think is like a bit complex, but so yeah, this is a cool resource. The two things that I would, or the one I guess like major caution is that it came from a team. Maybe there might be some stuff that's like not as high quality. So I would like read it ahead of time and decide what parts of this are good and like I think.
Now, I think Mr. Dachi, our in-service teacher, he really likes not teaching a whole lot, kind of getting the students to work along. And I really like that about TEALS, trying to keep your lectures to 10, 15 minutes and letting the students work. Because that was one of we did a survey ourselves, and one of the complaints was too much talking, not enough doing kind of thing, So don't, because we're so used to growing up in an environment where we're just lectured to, So that would be one of my things I would try to do is more working with the students, maybe even working, having the class do it, participating. Yeah.
In fact, I mean, yesterday, that's pretty much how we started out
Yeah.
class. We just said, okay, now have your sprite do this. And then there were 6 things listed.
To draw different figures, yeah.
And we just set them to it. And then we walked around and just saw how everyone was progressing. And that was that.
Then we had pictures taken.
Oh yeah, then it was picture day, so we had to then step out.
You were there.
Yeah, I was there.
You could have had your picture taken.
I should have jumped in the class picture next time. So yeah, if you want those slides and stuff, just send me an email and I can send them to you. Because they're large, so I didn't want to post them anywhere.
Well, the other thing about that, the Berkeley course too, they have self-testing exercises and stuff there too that, the students can do it themselves, or you can steal from it. What does this do? And so they give you 4 choices, and you pick the right one, and it's either right or wrong. And if it's wrong, I think it tried to explain and get you to redo it. So it's kind of some self-testing.
That was on that BJC, right?
Yeah, that BJC, yeah.
Okay, I saw some of that yesterday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not a bad resource, and it's actually not bad too if you're like, no one's going to be there. It's kind of like there's like step-by-step things laid out, so you could just be like, have the kids go on here and read through this, and then do that
I
activity.
did send out an email. I was like, okay, I'll do the class by myself, but not my preference, but I'll figure it out. And then one of the guys replied back, he would be in the classroom.
Oh, great.
That's good. So since there's 2 of us.
But yeah, that's much better, I think. Cool. So yeah, that's just like some resources that I think are helpful, hopefully, at least in the beginning as people are figuring out lesson planning.
And the other thing is, the curriculum resources up there off the TEALS dashboard, it's got it broken down by unit, so Unit 1 is the first one. I've got one up there on the history of computers, too, that
Okay.
you can
So
go
I've looked a couple times. I didn't go last night. Just the couple times I've looked at it, it hasn't been like, I think there was probably more AP stuff, and there was intro stuff, and
Well, you can
There's like
break it down.
sort
I
of,
mean,
yeah.
yeah.
The worst part about this website is that you have to type dashboard. So if you were at
The curriculum repository.
And then if we go, probably best to filter here by intro.
Yeah, on the side over there.
And then you get all the intro stuff, and then you can filter further and say, like, okay, we only want
Well, you can actually pick Unit 1 stuff.
over here,
and
yeah.
Unit 2
So I can
over
say,
there.
like, Unit 1.
Yeah, pick Unit 1, yeah.
And then this is all so you get, like, robot cuffs, which I guess you guys are going
Yeah,
to
that's
probably
what we're
talk
going to
about.
do today, yeah.
And then BYOB basics, a couple of labs,
There's
or
a
actually
lot more
several
stuff than the
labs.
last time
So it's like constant,
Okay.
we're constantly trying
Yeah,
to
it's
add.
a
So this is like a good place to check and just say like, okay.
Yeah.
And then, for Unit 2, I think there's probably even more stuff. Yeah, Unit 2's got a couple of quizzes, Mario, some slides, some different labs. So there a combination of places to go, I guess.
Yeah, for Mario, what we did, we kind of put up on our resources for our, the high school, kind of a zip file of costumes and sounds and so on, so the kids didn't have to do all of that. I mean, so it gives them a place to start from, and so they can just concentrate on writing the scripts.
Mm-hmm.
I can put that up there, if you'd like.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think we're
Mhm.
definitely at the point where like as many resources as we can get up
Mhm.
there, the better.
I just text you. I mean,
Yeah, you-
emailed you.
You have a list. I sent you a list of all the topics we did, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to figure out. So essentially, yeah, I'm trying to decide where to put all these things, or like how to. I'm like I have them all now. That was my first step, is just to, like get a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
and tell people that I have them. And then so if you email me, I'll probably just send you everything. And then I need to figure out how best to put them in an organized fashion. But yeah, we're a lot closer than we were before, so that's good. So I wanted to talk about Project 3 and perhaps Project 4, although I think that one's kind of like far off.
That's, 3 is Hangman.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then 4 is Space Invaders, which is like you would get to it for a while, and then I
Yeah.
think by then everything is more clear. And then I want to talk about CS Unplugged. I'm gonna have you guys
About
do
what?
the CS Unplugged.
Oh, okay.
And do like the cup thing, and then we have a couple other ones that I thought would be
Yeah.
good to discuss. But I'm curious to hear. So, have you done Hangman?
Pretty much.
Okay, cool. So then it's like helpful. We can talk about it. And you taught Hangman.
Yeah,
last
yeah.
year.
We spent a lot of time on Hangman
Okay.
last year, especially the second semester. It's probably too much, but
So I guess I would be interested to hear just a discussion about like where you guys think students will get tripped up, or where you actually saw that they did, or like good
well, we
practices
tried
for how
to teach them, put things in the list, and we was on the list thing, so we'd have them have a list of words, okay, they'd just add them in there, and then they'd randomly select a word out of that, okay, and then the strategy was to take that and take each letter and stick it in the list, okay, so you had a list of the letters, so when a guy entered a letter, you can use list contains that letter. And yes, so it was an easy way to do that. And if it did, then we had another list of guesses that originally starts with all underscores. And if you got a hit, you'd look down that and find that letter and replace the underscore with a dash, all the way through it. And then take that and store it in the variable mystery word or whatever you want to call it as text. So it would take the dashes and the letters and just really pretty simple,
The
yeah.
one thing that I got stuck on the Hangman is I got all my lists, I have all my, it replaces the letter, but
Yeah.
on screen, I didn't spend enough time, I'm sure, but to get okay, let's say the word is word. So it should have 4 lines across the bottom of the
Underscores,
stage,
yeah.
underscores.
Yeah.
And I could, because when I put them in a list, it puts them in a list like this.
Well, that's when you take
So-
the list as text and it converts it back. Okay? If you know the command I'm talking about?
No.
It's let me see.
Because what I would have is like, okay, let's say,
Yeah, if you go
I
under-
guess O, the O, you put O in there, put enter, and so O goes in, but my list shows up like this, so that it would say
Yeah, right.
blank, O, blank, blank.
Yeah.
Well, see. Well, no, but if you take as text, okay,
Okay.
that'll take your thing here and convert it to just a string,
This.
okay?
Oh, okay.
So-
I didn't know that as text.
Yeah, just
Blank.
whatever list it is as text, okay? And that'll then
you.
so we put displayed the variable that contained the mystery word. So
Mhm.
the mystery word would have that as text,
Yes.
and then it would just update. And
Yeah.
then you can, if you put a variable over here, you can make it larger so it doesn't put the label in front of it. You just get
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
so
'cause
that's
I have the
yeah.
space for it. It just
Yeah.
like kept going in
Right.
this,
So it looks
here.
like this
It
essentially.
looks like that, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you
Well,
do
not
it,
exactly. Mine's
if you do
just
that,
kidding.
variable as text.
Mine hangs the
Yeah.
man, and then he gets us
Mm-hmm.
crossbones.
But that was what we tried. It took a
Okay,
while.
so as text. Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That
Well, the
was
other thing
something
that
I have.
I'd like to do, and we did this a little bit last year, was try to teach them software design. In other words, you get your program and you come in it and have an initialize block, okay, which would do all that. Would pick out select the word and set up your list and so on,
Mhm.
and then have a what was it? Repeat until, okay, game over. So you set game over to false, and then within that you have another repeat of, select a letter and you process the letter, and then you set whether the game's over or not, whether he not solved the puzzle or this, and then you push all the details down. So, and you can use pretty much that software design for almost all these games, that you have an initialized block,
Yeah.
a repeat until game over, and within that a repeat for whatever individual thing, like in Pong,
Yeah.
introduce another ball, and so you
Yeah.
can have the game over is when one guy scores whatever and gets out. And at the end, we usually encourage them to have some kind of celebratory block, either yay, you won it. And
Oh,
there's
yeah,
a nice in BYOB. There's a nice stage and everything there. And if you put a loop of change the colors, the lights
yeah.
look like they flash around and everything. Yeah. And if you lose, you loser, you moron. I encourage the kids
Yeah.
to put a little attitude into the game.
That was put in by the students. You loser or moron. It wasn't something that we directed.
I don't know. I
We
think our
encourage, but
neighborhood would
didn't
be,
direct.
get in trouble for that.
Well, I think
Yeah.
kids like it. It puts a little
Well, yeah,
personality.
yeah, exactly. 'Cause
You
I'm
know.
a kid, high school kid.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's generally Hangman is pretty straightforward. I think once they get
Well,
That was my one hang up, and I was
yeah, I think like once you get the list idea down,
like, yeah.
But you got to use that
I got
contains
my
and
list,
as
I
text.
got
Yeah.
that, yeah, I got
As
all that, I
text.
just
That's the
didn't do
secret.
it as
Those are the
text.
two
Okay.
secrets for the whole thing.
So I was missing a secret.
have you had a chance to do Space Invaders?
No.
And so I suspect that you guys will get to it, so it's probably worth talking about. The version that I have is in Snap, and it's actually, it makes a difference. So let's look at the actual project. So the general idea is that they, it's like focused on the object-oriented idea. So like the big part of this project is cloning stuff and then destroying them and things like that. So, like, if you're playing this game, this is basically what you're doing, like, moving around, and like, this is the game that you're building. But the sort of tricky part,
It's kind of cool the way they turn like that.
yeah, those are some creative effects, I guess.
Yeah.
And so you're like shooting this thing, but the difficulty is that how do you like dynamically create and destroy these guys, basically? And so in Snap, and I think I gotta double check on BYOB actually, but in Snap at least there's all these things about like cloning. Like when I started to clone, create a clone, delete this clone, and so what basically happens is in the beginning you initialize all these guys and you just essentially clone yourself the right amount of times,
Okay.
and then all they're doing is they're like moving back and forth. If on edge bounds them, so they're just like rotating and moving lower and lower every time, so that it's like you will lose if you don't kill them all before they get to the bottom. The tricky thing is that you can't tell a clone to die; it has to kill itself in Snap, and so what each clone does, I mean, every clone runs the exact same code, even though you don't see them down here. So they're all running this, and what happens is if they detect that they are touching a missile, which is this thing, then they kill themselves by saying delete this clone. And so it's more like hard for kids to think about it that way. And so that's like one of the trickiest parts is just being like the clone itself has to be aware and like detect when it touches the thing and then kill itself. That's probably really the hardest part of this is just figuring out like how to make these things happen. The rest of it's pretty easy. So the missile does essentially the same thing. When it touches the enemy, it deletes itself also. And that's about it. And then this one's easy. The player itself is just like move back and forth.
Yeah.
And if it touches the enemy, the game is over. So probably the trickiest part is just like understanding the cloning. And so that's just what I would expect them to get confused about. I think clones and BYOB are slightly different. Let me see if I can find the actual. Where is that block?
There is a clone block.
Is it? Where is it?
Is it under control?
Oh, or is this? Oh, here it is. Okay, so it's under operators.
Operators, okay.
But I don't know how this. Do I have to? I can clone myself by pressing this, but can I clone myself otherwise?
You can
Or do you actually have to create?
No, you can create a clone from one. Create all the other ones.
How do you do that?
Just the same way you did it in Snap.
But I don't see the block in which you. create in which you actually create a clone.
You just save it. I don't know. Do you just save it in a variable? What is?
I don't know. No, because this is like it's an operator, which is like a weird.
Well, it's a reporter block
thing for it to be.
Is there a network connection here?
Yes, it's called SQA, I think.
I've got the Space Invaders on my home computer. I don't have it here.
Anyway, yeah, like I said, this project doesn't come up for a while, so we can figure it out. It's the one. Scroll up a little bit. Oh yeah, it's that one. Sorry, the password is SQA happy exclamation.
And then type the word happy.
Mm-hmm. Exclamation point. All lowercase. Oh, maybe this is actually. What did I want to see? What this actually does? Oh, maybe you just call it. That could be correct.
You have to make a variable.
Yeah, I guess you just call. You just call it. I mean, it looks like it's this.
Call the clone.
Yeah. Because clone has code in it. And so I suppose that's what you do. And then I have with inputs. What are the
All the
inputs?
calls with inputs. The clone doesn't, I don't think, takes any input.
Oh, right, yeah. I guess.
You just,
So that's probably, it's just this, yeah.
well, try it once. But if you execute it, what happens? Does it? Yeah, they made a clone. There's sprite.
It did,
there.
yeah, and then I got an error. I don't know what that is. Okay, so that makes sense then. In that case, it's this block.
Well, go ahead and
But
click on sprite too. Then.
Right, the difference is that, that's the difference. In BYOB, if you clone yourself, you actually create another sprite, and so it doesn't have to kill itself. You could actually reference it.
Okay.
So it's easier. You could just say,
in
okay.
BYOB, you're going to end up with a bunch of them.
Yeah,
Whereas in
and they're
Snap,
each-
you end up with one that's just a...
Right. And so that's why in Snap they have to like take care of themselves. But in BYOB you can reference the clones independently. So that's like the key difference.
What can you delete? You saying you can delete a clone from another sprite?
Right. Yes. I'm pretty sure that you can do that. Or you can essentially stop.
Or have?
I'm pretty sure that you can either delete or stop stop the execution of a clone, and then you can. I mean, you can reference them, so that would indicate that you can do things to them from other sprites.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key difference. It's a lot easier for kids to visualize too in this. But aside from that, also a fairly straightforward project. So you guys said that you did a final project once, but you didn't another time.
We didn't do it the second semester.
Gotcha.
No, we did not.
Interesting. And so
We spent a lot of time on that hangman. We probably spent too much time.
and then you just that took you to the end of class.
Yeah, Plus, like what happened Friday. It seemed like we got a lot of interruptions. All of a sudden, a counselor wanted to come in and talk to the class. Well, as a matter of fact, on September 22nd, we've already got one of those that they're going to take our class away from us.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, I think it was because they were juniors. It was some stuff to prepare them to be seniors or
Makes sense.
field trips. Some of the kids went on field trips, so all of a sudden, 20 out of 30 kids are gone.
Well, yeah, I guess that's always
Yeah.
an interesting challenge. And so the final project we do suggest, and you don't have to do it this way, is one in which like kids design their own.
Yeah.
And so this is just an example. It's like the hardest part probably is giving them structure to be able to design their own project. And so this is just like an example of one that like kids might generate if you want to take a look at it.
The hardest thing is trying to keep it within scope so they don't bite off too much or too little.
Right. Well, so was there a structure that you guys used in particular to like help them do that, or
Not
how did
really.
you-
We just kind of had them do something, and then would come around and review what they did and say, "This is you're not going to be able to do all of this. You're going to have to cut it back, or add some of these other things to it." So it was, just kind of that interaction review.
Yeah, like constantly. And did you have kids work in groups?
Oh yeah, all the time pairs. Yeah, well that's the whole TEALS philosophy is pairs.
Right. But I've seen I've seen people do all the projects or some of the projects independently, and then add groups for like the final project.
I didn't really.
Yeah, like that's why I said when I saw you guys already working in pairs, there are definitely classrooms that do a lot of stuff independently and then like introduce groups for something. But the final project to me,
I think I do agree with the TEALS that there is some interaction and so on. Yeah. Hopefully, the stronger one will pull the weaker one up and not the other way around.
well, sure, yeah.
But you have to kind of watch them a little bit. That somebody, supposedly every 5 or 10 minutes they they should at least swap doing typing.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So if you are going to have them work in pairs, you want some like structures and things. But I think the final project is a good one for groups because it's like kind of hard to sit there and just like think of what a good idea is.
What we did do though, the first about 3/4 of the year, we assigned seats so they could do it. But for the final project, we let them pick their partner.
That's kind of fun. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So if they share some interest, sports or something, they could do something in that area.
Right. That makes sense. So yeah, that's just something to think about. That talks about everything you talk about. Design a project, create a spec, create a plan, do the project, pair programming. So yeah, I think this. How long did you guys leave for it? I feel like teams usually leave like 4 weeks. How long did you allocate?
It was at least 3 weeks. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of a lot. Another thing that you could do is just like finish Hangman. Well, are you guys year long?
We are first semester, but the school's trying to get a second semester. So.
Okay, but it's different kids, right?
Different kids.
Okay.
Yes, it's only one.
So it's
Okay.
repeated.
Yeah. So then, what you might end up doing, depending on how fast you go, is you could also just cut Space Invaders and go straight to the final project if you have like 4 weeks left.
Yeah, that's what we
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
And give them more time to be creative.
And we didn't do recursion or object oriented. We didn't do any of that.
Yeah, that's
That was
definitely
just too
something
much.
that
Yeah.
we want to get in there. We're starting Mario. We're signing it Wednesday, and it's due I think the 27th, 28th, one of those days.
That quick? Wow. We don't even start Mario until about the second or third week.
Yeah, different paces. So yeah, depending on how it goes.
Well, you
But
said somebody wanted to do recursion right away or something.
I think that was more of a misunderstanding. But
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the coolest part about Intro is that like you can
Well,
just
see what we did too. We kind of built up to it a little bit. We had a project was like find the key, or you had to get the key and then you could kill the guy and win the game. So a real simple thing like that. Mm-hmm. And another one was search for a key buried in the sand. You could we kept the coordinates of a rectangle around it, so when you crossed into that, then that rectangle would light up and you know where the key was, and then you could touch the key and it would, the key would come up too. Yeah.
I got some things here because I'll go on over angles. I like that stuff. Yeah, so that's I'm gonna do this. I saw one here where a teacher actually had the students like when you're teaching this space bar and the space bar left right keys and stuff. Mm-hmm. Teacher had built a project in the current repository thing where the kids would follow this project that they would just import it into Snap and they'd follow it and kind of give them an idea. So I don't know if I can come up with something like that in 2 days, but I think it would be fun for the students to see. I was even thinking maybe even just a maze, because a maze should do the space bar to start it and left right to get to
like a finished project, so
they can go through
play
it
and see how it works.
Exactly, see how it works.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
I feel like you could maybe put it together pretty quick, or I don't know. Or put it on the forum and see if anybody.
One thing I did want to know is it says when you push the space bar, apparently it says follow instructions. We were talking about it, I'm not sure who with, but there's actually, you can put instructions into your games, and I don't know how to do that. Like, apparently if you push the space bar...
When pressed, you mean?
If you push the space bar...
Yeah, there's...
Does it just say...
No.
And then...
Well, under
I'm on
the
BYOB
control,
right now.
yeah, under control,
uh-huh.
okay. There's when
Yeah, this
press,
one,
right?
uh-huh,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
so drag it over, yeah, okay. So, yeah, you can put a say, so go to what, looks,
Sensing?
yeah, and drag over, say something, you know.
And so you just type in all the
Well, if
instructions.
you just, no, yeah, you just
Right.
push the space bar
whatever.
and you should say that, right? Oh, we got space there?
Start
Oh, okay.
the game
Yeah.
by I gotcha. Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
that's
So
how
you
they
just
put the
put-
text
yeah,
in
so-
there. Okay.
And
It's
so
just too darn simple. I'm overthinking it.
it definitely, yes.
Well, if you
it's-
notice, under here, there's a pull down, you got all the keys and everything. See, go click on
Oh
it.
yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's how I got
So
to.
you can left, right arrow, up, down,
Yeah.
space bars,
Yeah.
space bar for
Okay.
jumping, yeah.
Because I was
That's
like,
all
well,
there is
how did
to
they
it.
put in instructions? So
Yeah, that's and
I
can
guess they just sat and typed them in the save log.
See, that's
Pretty
something
much,
we'll
yeah.
probably get to maybe next week, you know, and leading up to Mario is all the when press keys to get them used to thinking like
Well,
that.
I got 2 days to get them there, so. no, I mean, we're gonna assign it on Wednesday, but it's not due.
right.
You know.
And I
for
mean,
a
if
couple
yeah,
of
if you
weeks.
notice that they're like
Yeah.
really behind, that's like you can
Well,
adjust
but
to
you-
that.
Don't forget, put yourself in their situation. You know, they've never seen this before, and you might be going too fast to do something like that.
I just think they're smart kids.
Give it a
think they're gonna
try.
sit down
You'll
and
figure-
figure
you'll
this
figure-
out in a
you'll
minute.
get a
And then
feel.
If they don't, then I'll be answering a lot of questions.
Yeah, or I mean, you'll get a feel for like what. Yeah, I mean, might as well give it
Yeah.
a try. And quick.
We can always push deadlines,
Right.
forward.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I would say like if you see him struggling, then you're like, well, good to know. That was
Yeah.
too fast.
But see, to do Mario, you got to do costumes too. At least we did. When they walk, the costumes change. And
Yeah, that
jumping
part is
and the
tricky.
touching. When he jumps up and touches the question mark, the mushroom comes out. You know, so there's quite a few things in there. The touching, which is under
Sensing, I think.
sensing, yeah, right. So you've got that. You've got the changing costumes and yeah. So you know, you know. And one of the other projects we did was a little thing with the bat. You know, if you look on the costumes in BYOB.
Well, that's I'm just
Yeah.
brand new to BYOB. I was like, wow, you guys have a lot of costumes. Because in the other one, I was like, I had to import my own Mario
Yeah,
ones. I
yeah.
had to
Yeah.
change the left rights on Mario. So that was a lot of work. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the bat can fly up and down.
Yeah, you know, you got two different
There's a
things. So
dragon.
Yeah, so
the
you can,
wings, you know, if you switch from
Yeah.
one kind, it looks like it's flying.
Flying.
Yeah.
you can
So
actually
just,
do
you know.
much of those concepts with the bat. You can do gravity with the bat, and like have them introduce gravity and have to like keep it flying.
Mhm.
Basically, Flappy Bird.
Yeah.
You just kind of had him.
Fun bat.
If he hits something, you know, if he hits this edge, he falls down or something. Something like that. And with Mario and that, you got that glide, which is kind of, you know, takes so long to move from one position, so you don't have to worry about, you know, gravity or anything. It's just kind of a smooth move from one point to another.
Yeah. So that generally covers my project related or like curriculum related stuff. But are there other like curriculum related things that you guys wanted to talk about? Since this is our last summer training session, so.
You were going to show the cup thing.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
that's just the next topic.
Sure.
And there's like a bit of other there. It's a part of a larger thing, which I think is really awesome. So CS Unplugged is just this really awesome thing that can play a really big role in intro because you have tons of flexibility. And so they have a website that's like csunplugged.com, or if you search it on YouTube, there's videos. But it's basically a bunch of activities that teach concepts without computers. And they, you know, you can use them to like break up different parts of the year, or like if you're teaching a lot of like algorithm related topics, it makes sense. And so there are a few that are cool. The Robot Cup one is the one that I'll let you guys talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a couple with like binary search, binary numbers, sorting. They're like, there's a piece of paper over there that has like procedures for those. And so we'll look at those as well, but they're just like good ways to conceptualize topics. But if you guys want to talk about the cup one, and like what you did, how you did it.
I have a question. How many times throughout the semester do you bring one of these in? Do you bring it in like every 2 weeks, or do you bring it in if they're maybe not quite grasping a concept, or?
Well,
We kicked this off on, what, day 1?
day 2.
Day 2. Yeah, day 2 basically to sink in the idea that computers are just following instructions no matter what.
Well, yeah, and programming, the whole concept
Right.
of programming, to symbolically tell something, some robot in this case, what to do to build the pyramid.
Yeah, I like your quote, Bill, which is, computers aren't smart, they're just really fast idiots.
They aren't smart at all. They're just, dumb, fast idiots. They do exactly what's told.
I mean, I think to answer your broader question, they lend themselves better to some topics than others.
Yeah.
So like,
I'd say it's almost when you feel like it. We did some of the TED Talks. The kids kind of like those, And I did that history of computers, and I did another one. I'm trying to think what the other one was now. But just some computer culture, they call it. Talk about jobs and encourage kids to do that.
Yeah, that's what I thought about. Like next week, showing that.
Now we
video.
didn't
Yeah,
do anything with that
yeah.
blown to bits the second semester. We did 3 or 4 chapters the first semester, but we didn't do anything with it.
When did you start into Blown to Bits?
First week or two, first couple of weeks, But I don't know. It just didn't seem that interesting,
yeah, I mean, I know some classes do like every Friday for a half an hour, we're going to do a non-coding related thing. So you could like try to have a regular
Yeah.
like rhythm to it if that's easier. Or like some schools have a particular day of the week that's short. I don't know if you guys have that. And then on that like short day, it's like we're either.
It's kind of weird. Like the schedules are like crazy because like on Wednesdays none of us could do it. So and it starts later too. It starts at 9 instead of 8. So kind of like okay, well, and then
So like that
How
could
long-
be a day to do that kind of thing.
but it's 9 to 10.
You
So
got
just
an hour?
yeah, it's
2
a
hours.
55-minute class.
What, do you have 2 hours the other days then?
No. The other days they just start early in the day.
Oh, either
On
8
Wednesdays
to
it
9
starts
or they
just
start later.
9 to 10, which is just
That's
bizarre.
kind of
It's like
strange. Yeah.
Yeah,
because we had our schedule set and they're like, oh wait a second, that's not gonna work. So yeah.
Mhm.
So like I don't know, whatever works. You could have like a more regular
Yeah, I know another
Maybe
thing.
that would be
thing.
a day to fill in,
right and just be like here, Josh.
Another thing
look
I
at
did
this.
was, and it's up there in that resources, is hardware and software. In other words, I talked about, the old type is, you have a compiler and you link it and you execute it, and you build it and so on like that. And then the hardware, I actually got a couple old derelict laptops from the school here, and I took it apart. And I got a disk drive, and I opened that up, and so you could see here's the chips, here's the CPU chip, and here's the heat sink and the fan, so they could actually see what the inside of that, because kids don't open that up anymore. I mean, that's one thing that's changed in the last 30 or 40 years. Kids don't take things apart, not very often,
True. Yeah, true.
But to see what's in there and understand the way the software works, how that these are interpreters, BYOB, that it takes the code on the fly and builds, the stuff right there and execute it. Like Java and I don't know, C++, they build a pseudocode, which Java Virtual Machine runs later. So compile that once and you run on any machine. Just some of those concepts so that they get an idea of, that kind of environment. I also got, I hadn't put it up there, about intelligence and NSA. We were
That's a big
contractors
topic
with
now, yeah.
NSA for a long time.
Yeah.
Intelligence gathering, what the different collection methods are, how the satellites fly, and everything.
Yeah, there's also this cool activity related to what you were saying about taking part of a computer that I've heard of, where people give kids like roles that are different parts of the computer, and then they're like, okay, you're going to be a calculator, and then like, who's like, one person is like taking the numbers, and then they like put it somewhere else, and they store it, and then somebody else is like doing the adding, and they like are like passing around these pieces of data.
That sounds really activity.
Yeah, I saw it. Where did I see it? I saw it in a classroom last year, and like, they just came up with it, I guess, and it was very cool. And so that's like a cool one. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to be like this other computing device. And there's this whole discussion also about like what is a computer, and like some of the things they didn't think of as computers, but they actually were, and like acting out those computations.
Well, computers actually go way back because everybody thinks of digital computers, but analog computers go a couple thousand years. And that's one of the things I mentioned in that history was the Antikythera mechanism. Did you ever hear about that? That these guys found it about in 1900. They were sponge divers in Greece. They pulled up this piece of bronze-like, and it turns out that it was 2,000 years old, and it had a complete model of the solar system and everything, and predict eclipses and all this, and gears. It had 53 gears in it. This was done 2,000 years ago, and the first gear trains in Europe were like in 1450 or something, Yeah. And again, it's an analog computer because all the gearing in it had a lever you turned and it would show all the relative position. Because in the I think it was the Greeks I think it was the Greeks that built it because they were really revolved all their activities around eclipses. So the thing could even tell whether it was going to be like a red eclipse or a white eclipse, because it depends on how close the moon is and whether it's behind the Earth, so they could even tell what kind of eclipse. And it had like 19.5-year cycles, and they had all this geared in there, It's just amazing, And this was, and of course you had like Stonehenge and all the different astronomers, which are all analog. Thermostats were analog, thermometers, clocks, the gearing in the clock and everything. So
yeah, I guess if you guys want to do the cup demo or describe how that works and show that. That's probably the last.
Can I use your thing to plug into then?
Yes.
I guess back there.
Well, this guy?
Yeah, I think that's
okay. Hopefully that works.
Yeah. I can get mine.
Is that the right?
Oh,
some of the projectors also can be connected to with AirPlay.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's something that I had noticed as well.
Oh, okay, there we are. Okay.
This is working, so all the better.
Oh, let's see now. How do I get back out of this now? I'm not where I want to be.
I'm gonna try.
I'll get out of this.
Yeah, so as soon as they do this, because at 2:30 the AP people are arriving. And so I'm sure there will be some buffer of arrival. Or maybe no one will show up, we'll see.
How come I can't make this smaller?
20 minutes.
Come on. Here we go.
There's a thing at the top left. I don't know if you can see it. The small magnifier. Does that do anything?
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if I can move that over.
I wonder if I can. The people that are online. Oh, there are multiple people. I wonder if I can.
Oh, there you go.
That's terrible. Oh no, it's not bad.
Oh, no.
It's great actually.
Come on. Why does this thing want to move up here? Come on, think. There we go. Oh, move. Come on. Oh, this thing doesn't want to. What's going on with this thing?
Looks like the window is a little too wide for the screen.
Yeah, there's some kind of resolution or like ratio thing going on.
What would happen if you hit the green plus in the upper left?
Which one?
The green circle
Oh, I see what you're saying.
in the upper left.
Up here?
Yeah. Can you try that one?
We said, okay, let's be centers. Yeah, let's see. Okay. All right, yeah.
That seemed to
Okay.
help.
Okay, introduction to programming, how to build pyramids from cups. What is programming? Okay, so ask the students, to think what programming is. Of course, most of them think that it's computer programming, and then it's a sequence of instructions to accomplish some useful purpose. So I asked them to kind of say, well, can you think of some examples? And like music, okay, you've got the sheet music, which becomes music. There's a bunch of symbols, instructions there. And, they're programmed, too, to come to class when the bell rings and behave and all this. So programming is everywhere. So, let's see. So, computer programming is often short of just programming. It's a process that leads from formulation to executable programs, and algorithms are step-by-step procedures for calculation. And coding is the process that transforms desired action into symbolic language. Okay? And then just talk a minute about abstractions, a process of separating ideas from specific instance. And the lower level you get down in abstraction, the more detail and you get involved. And have an example here of vehicles. You've got cars, trucks, airplanes, and so on. And then one of the instances of vehicle is a car, and you've got the user interface for driving it, motor, transmission, so on. The user interface, and then breaks down, more details, steering wheel, key, brake pedal, seat. So then you can look at the brake pedal. You got the hydraulic system or mechanical system, how the brake works, the closing of the calipers on the disc, or drum brakes expanding into the drum. So.
We're doing so well. There we go.
Okay, so here programming robotic cups. We're going to use a predefined robot vocabulary, and the students will figure out how to guide one another to build a pyramid, make the connection between the symbols and the action, and debugging to figure out when something is wrong to fix it. And at the end, we'll introduce functions, the idea of making this more understandable. So, do robots understand what you say? Well, not the same way that a person does. They have to be fed instructions and programmed. And how do we make this happen? Well, in our sample for today, we're going to talk about building a pyramid, and these will be the symbols we'll use. The up arrow to pick up a cup, the down arrow to put it down, move forward pointing right, move backwards pointing left, and then we've got two turns. A turn to the right is a turn cup right 90 degrees, and then the other way is turn it left 90 degrees. So here with my able assistant here, my robot, we're going to actually do a pyramid here, okay? So have the students kind of read off the symbols here, okay? The first symbol is pick a cup up, so the robot picks a cup up. We're a little stuck together. We'll take them off, yeah. Okay, so he picks a cup up, then he moves forward, I guess, 2 half spaces, okay? So each arrow is a half space, so move forward twice, okay? Then set the cup down, then go backwards 2 spaces, okay? Now, we're on the second line, pick up a cup. Does this one come off here? Just give me those. So pick up a cup, move 4 times half spaces to the forward, okay? Then set the cup down, pick up, go back 4 spaces, okay? Pick up, now we're on the third line, pick a cup up, move forward 3 half spaces, okay? And then set the cup down, okay? So we've built a little pyramid, okay? And here you can kind of see a diagram of what we just did. You know, we got their stack of cups at 0 steps. 1 step is half a step, half a cup width, and 2 steps is a full cup. So we move those forward and set them down and build the pyramid out of that. Okay, so this is where we had the students kind of split up into groups of 3, and each group was given a pyramid to build, okay? So we'd give that out to students here, okay? And now, so we had groups of 3, so 2 members will build a program with the symbols, you know, pick up the cup, move, set it down, go back, and so on. And the robot, the third guy, would come over after they're done, and he would obey their instructions, okay? And so, so if we have any issues, we can correct or debug the program and start again. So this, you know, is debugging the thing. Okay, so here's a fairly complicated stack right here, okay? Now, if we take the cup all the way over on the right, okay, to do it without merging things together, it would look like this top. You'd pick up a cup, move over 12 times, set the cup down, move back 12 times, okay? And then you see the second line there is pick up, do 12 times, moving to the right, set it down, move 12 times, moving back to the left. So this makes it much more readable and understanding, and the idea of a function that you take this information and make it easier to read and follow. Let's see. Okay, so what we learned, definition of programming, algorithms, abstractions, how the programming uses symbols to accomplish desired results. And okay, now, but it also has some limitations. One limitation is we cannot build a 3-dimensional object out of this. All of our cup commands move in a plane, okay? So we couldn't build a table or a chair or anything. So I think that's it. Oh, okay, then this is just the pyramid, the student pyramid here. Okay, that was basically it.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I've seen some classes where like they jump right into programming, and I think kids like face a disconnect with understanding like the whole idea that like you're giving set instructions to like have it do something. So this is good for that, I think, to just go, oh.
Yeah, transitions from, you know, understanding.
Nothing to
yeah, and drawing some of those figures. You know, you got to clear something, do the pen up, go to a location, pen down, and then start drawing. So it makes you really, you know, understand that you got to do those instructions exactly. Like we're saying, they're just fast idiots, but you have to tell them exactly what to do.
And like, yeah, you'll see kids, you know, not have the right instructions and like really mess up. And then they'll be like,
Yeah, we actually did. I actually did the code.org. I did chapter 4, which was graphing. Basically,
oh,
same thing,
nice.
Right, going down color,
Mm-hmm.
those types of things. So you try to draw the picture. So I did that the first day. Again, first class, first day back to school. So I really hit them hard with, you know, learning these concepts.
How'd it go?
I think it went well.
That's awesome.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm not a teacher, so it was clear, you know, that the words I say confuse kids. You know, so I learned a lot. So I take a lot of notes and how I'll change it for the next time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's probably the biggest thing. Is not having done it before. You know, you just learn so much as to, you know, how to improve it.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of simulate it until you're there and you're like, okay, this is.
Did you have them actually, like this one, try to generate the instructions to construct that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you go to code.org,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can go here, but if you bring it up,
Yeah.
chapter 4 was, you know, they basically have
Mm-hmm.
a whole packet for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I pretty much stole the bulk of what they had, and
See if I can find it actually.
It should be right there.
again, I would change some of the material, but that's me.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You know, because part of it was too, I didn't really like have I didn't have like the thought of they need a separate piece of paper to write their code down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they're kind of like flipping over to the backside of it. You know,
Yeah.
we'd have kids over
Yeah,
here
yeah.
doing
Mhm.
stuff on the backside of the piece of paper
Yeah.
type
Mhm.
of thing. And so I hadn't planned some of those little logistics out.
Yeah.
And so that's where that was a bit problematic. So I think, you know, like they had a picture drawn in code. If I had done the picture and had a spot for them,
Yeah.
the code right next to it, that would have been,
Mhm.
you know, a lot more,
Mhm.
at least easier for them than.
Do they have notebooks, or do you give out notebooks?
No.
We gave out notebooks. Matter of fact, next week we're probably going to talk about types of blocks. You know, the cap block, the command blocks, you know, all the different types of blocks.
Mhm.
And we've taken, instead of having them write that all down in a notebook, we actually took it on a piece of paper and shrunk it so they could just cut it and paste it in the book. So it's, and then they could write little notes like that.
Yeah, the school I'm at is really big on everything electronic, so they give them Google accounts and Google Docs, so they're expecting them to type the notes as they go.
Well,
So,
but then, you know, then they can't really listen to you. You know, that's the conflict. You know, you
I'm
spend
just
time.
telling you, it's
Yeah, I
like,
know.
Right.
so that's
If,
what
if
I'm
that's what the
walking
school's
into,
doing,
trying
that's
to
what the
figure out,
school's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
what
at
the
some point.
logistics are, and, you know, how to make it work. And it's like, you know, I've got an instructor who doesn't write on the whiteboard, and it's like, you have pens because I want to draw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's very visual. He's like, no, he's all about just, you know, doing the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything being electronic based, and I wasn't quite ready for that. I
Yeah.
guess.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess it has its pros and cons.
And again, I'm sure next semester it'll be different. It'll be a different class, I'm positive, just because I'm going to have learned so much that I'm going to tweak
Yeah.
what I've done.
Well, we generally, what we do, when they give quizzes and stuff, we have their open book. So whatever notes they've taken, they can use those notes, you know, on the quizzes.
Yeah, it's not a bad like incentive, I guess, to have. So wait, Jason, what did you
I
use?
don't know, was that under the hour of code or something? I don't
know.
remember.
Uh,
I don't know what.
There's a
Maybe it's just under
curriculum
learn.
tab on the left.
The very top, is this a learn?
I think that's how I got. Oh, this is not how I got here. That's what I thought I
click
did.
Teach.
Oh, that's how I got here.
Oh, all right. 8 to 12 intro
there's-
course maybe?
There's a curriculum. Let's see.
This guy.
Maybe. That doesn't look right.
Section 3. That's.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
Let me look for it.
yeah. If you find it, then because I think it'd be cool to share. But yeah, in general, code.org is they've got some.
Yeah, the first
Good
couple
resources.
chapters were just too basic. You know,
Right,
so,
yeah,
I
it's-
mean, it was clearly for elementary school.
Yeah, they're kind of like a K through 12 thing. Try it now. Maybe that's what it is. Try it. Oh, I know where it is. I just saw it. Graph paper programming.
Yes.
I should have been watching this.
K through 8 course is what I clicked on.
Enjoy.
And then they have all these things, so I assume
Right.
this is what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I want to start with an unplugged activity where we weren't using computers yet.
Right. Oh, this is neat. Let me see what the...
And you went to try it first?
Yes.
Okay, try it
And then
first.
it has like a list of stages, and then this is stage 4. Does it have a list of stages here? Yeah.
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 Oh, cool.
And so this is cool. Oh, by programming, that's cool. Yeah, okay, this is very similar. I like this.
Right. So they give you a programming key, they give you a sample code.
Like a set of instructions, and then they're drawing. You're having them
Right.
programming your friend to draw something.
Yeah.
Ah,
So they didn't have great handouts. I mean, I kind of cut and paste pieces of this into the handout I gave.
right. Oh, this is cool.
And again, it was over the top where you could start doing different colors and stuff, and it's like I wanted, somewhere around a 30, 40-minute activity.
Right. And
So yeah, so they give you some shapes and you just write.
oh, and then they have multiple. I see what you're saying.
And then we started
Different
introducing
colors.
functions very similar to you, where it's like,
repeat.
move right, so we did right and fill,
Mhm.
and that, repeat that 7 times or whatever,
Yeah.
and you draw a line.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I wonder.
So we started, getting the concept of functions.
Yeah.
That's not what I expected. Cool. Okay. Yeah. I wonder if some of their other things might be.
And that's the video you can watch there too.
And it looks like they have a series of unplugged activities actually.
Right,
So
yeah.
many of these might be cool for various topics. I'm a little bit curious, for example, what this might be. Students with experience. Cards. I'm like too impatient to read this. Okay, this is how you refresh the idea. Oh, okay, I see. So they have these different cards and you have like various conditions. Yeah, so anyway, that's neat. So yeah, that's actually a really good unplugged resource in general, it seems, code.org.
Yeah.
In addition to csunplugged.com, which is also pretty good. So yeah, that is the structured intro content. EP people, if they are coming, should be here soon. And we'll talk about some vulgar things. I suspect we'll end early. Unless you guys have like things you want to discuss. Everything. No, actually, you missed some I think hopefully useful things. So, I was trying to respond to the general feedback about like not enough curriculum resources for planning. So I just asked a lot of people for them, and so I came up with a few things. Probably the most helpful. There's 2 things that are most helpful. So one of them is this website, and so it is a teacher who teaches intro in Seattle, and he did TEALS with us like 3 or 4 years ago, and now teaches it himself. And he's posted his entire course like day by day. And so actually, if you, what was I going to say? These slides are in the week 5 lesson,
Okay.
so you can pull the URL from there as well. But it's the only different thing is that he uses Scratch instead of Snap, so there's like mild differences, but you can at least see like literally every day, okay, what did you cover, what slides. He's got like a series of worksheets that I think are really awesome. He does pretty much the same projects. So it's like, that's one really good resource. The other one is this giant, it's 600 slides. And so it's all their lessons for the whole year, or the whole semester, I guess.
That was off of the website.
This is a separate document, and if you want this one, I'll have to email it to you. So just send me an email, and I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Because
This thing is set up for a full year class. So.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's for a full year. That's why there's 500.
So the pacing is a little different. Okay.
The pacing is different, but I mean, you could cut it down or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, in all of these things, the pacing is different anyway. But the cool part is that it's just he has not only like the whole lesson in terms of slides, but at the bottom in the notes, there's all this like information.
If you could see, he kind of has slides
like he has cool notes on like what he's talking about and all that stuff. So it's kind of like pick and choose what's helpful, but at least it's a place to go if you're like, I have no idea what to do for this topic. And it's a bit of a mess because it's just labeled like lesson 4, so you have to kind of look through and see like what topic it is. But at least it's there, and it says like variables. Here's what we do, and then he's got classwork, he's got questions. There's homework, classwork homework, so it's, I think, a really good place to start if you're not sure.
Right.
And so I can also share that with you. So those are 2 things that I found that I think are helpful. So we talked about that, and then we talked about the projects. So we talked about Hangman and Space Invaders. And then we just talked about CS Unplugged and like this activity and some of the other ones. And so that is what you missed.
So you've been going this whole week then?
Just Thursday.
Oh, you started Thursday, okay.
Yeah, my school, every Friday is a late start Friday, so that means
Oh.
we can't do, I just can't wait an extra hour for school to start.
Yeah. So what do you have, the teacher?
So then I'm just going to do Monday, Tuesday.
Mhm.
And then our third person dropped out, so now the teacher's on the hook for Wednesday through Friday.
But there's a person that I'm really hoping to get.
So I really got to help the instructor get like Wednesday through Friday, at least try to get more lab or something in there.
Has
So-
the instructor programmed before, or is he new?
It's not like HTML and some JavaScript.
Yeah, okay.
So and then he went to the week course up
Oh.
in Berkeley. So
Mhm.
so I think he'll do all right, but he's clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can understand.
Yeah, I talked to him and he was like, I'd really love to find someone else, and I'm like, yeah, me too. Like hopefully I have somebody. I need to just close the deal, which I haven't been able to do yet, but but I'm hopefully at least this kind of stuff will help too, with just like if he doesn't, there's a day where it's like I don't know what to cover. Here's at least an outline of
That's
what.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So we're going to
so
try and get a couple weeks ahead, so at least we know what he's doing Wednesday through Friday.
yeah.
Why did they do that, a late start on Friday? Is there a reason for it?
I think it all started with the 2007, 2008 with all the budget problems
Oh.
and the teacher negotiations and
Mm.
stuff. So, it's like now we got 3 weeks. We have a winter break now. We got 3 weeks off, for Christmas time, and 2 weeks for spring break. And so I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
I think some schools use it as mandatory teacher collaboration time.
right.
Uh-huh.
It's like
So
training.
instead of, because people aren't exactly excited to stay beyond the workday,
Yeah.
so they'll be like, now you have an hour where you have to be in school. There's no kids, so
Yeah.
we can do like whatever productive things. So yeah, hopefully the AP crowd comes.
And then I don't know about you, but the other problem I've had, at least with exercises, I mean, I as a developer know everything, right?
Yeah.
And so when I start looking at, oh, this is a cool project and here's what it takes to code it, then I have to start layering in, but when are these things going to get taught?
That's right. You gotta
You know.
you gotta make sure that you've taught it before you ask them, or at least show them what These are additional topics we haven't talked about yet, but what you can use. Like we did that kind of Friday when we talked about a repeat loop and variables. So we didn't talk about variables yet. We'll talk about that Monday or Tuesday. To introduce the concept instead of having to do every line. To put repeats and so on.
Right.
Yeah, we show. This is something we'll probably be doing this coming week too. Let me see if I can get it up here.
Too much going on here.
We have this happy face, smiley face exercise. See, but it takes a lot of code because we don't have any repeat loops or anything in it. It goes way down here, but they have to know how to draw a circle. Which is this part up in here, and then draw the eyes. Well, this is going to be YOB. This isn't
Right.
map yet. And then the mouth is a semicircle, and then a nose and some freckles. Then we'll put repeat loops so they can get around some of this, but,
Yeah.
I'll wait a little longer to see if anybody shows up. And then otherwise we'll just talk about what we're going to talk about. So essentially the whole group part is going to be a little bit of like practice teaching, I guess, like either through an unplugged activity or if you have a part of a lesson you actually want to practice. And then I want to look at a couple of really interesting studies about why women and underrepresented students tend not to study computer science. So there's been some really, really concrete data on like why that is, and then some good strategies that work. So.
Really?
Yeah, very recently, actually. Google just published a paper in May that is incredible. We'll talk about it, so I shouldn't spoil it all.
Yeah.
Where they studied like 91 different factors that influence whether women study computer science, and like boiled it down to 4 key ones, which is really interesting. And then this professor at Stanford does a ton of research on why minority students don't persevere in STEM fields in general, and has come up with a few what he calls micro interventions, so like discrete, short in time things that you could do that then have systemic, long-lasting effects on success. And they're just so cool. And the strategies, it's just like that is so easy and it's so little, and you just like wouldn't think about it. So that's like the other part of what I want to talk about that I think is particularly applicable to us.
Yeah.
I got an email about doing a study on TEALS and whether or not we want to.
Yeah. Oh, so who's it from?
West Ed.
Okay. Yeah. Gosh. Yeah. I should have gotten that email. That's interesting. So yeah, that's relevant. West Ed is this independent of TEALS education research firm that just received a several $1 million grant from the NSF to study TEALS over like 5 years, and so. That's what that email's about. Is if you want to participate, it's like I think you have to take some surveys for them throughout the year, and then separately they will be reaching out to schools to see if students will participate, and then like the students will take certain surveys as well, and then they're going to like visit certain classrooms. I think they're based in the Bay Area, so most of their work is in the Bay Area.
I think we had one of them come to our class last year.
Probably, yeah.
Twice. She actually showed up twice.
Yeah. So they. I think that's what that email is about, is if you can opt out of, or I guess you have to opt in, maybe.
Yeah.
So if you want to participate in the study, you can opt in. I'll be really interested to see the results of it. I'm glad.
What sort of things do they ask?
Well, it looks like they're trying to assess the students' knowledge at the beginning of the course, and then assess their knowledge at the end of the course. And I think they're just trying to look at, how impactful TEALS is. Compared to other programs. I mean, that's the gist I get out of it.
Right. Oh, that would make sense. They're probably trying to get some metrics on it.
And then when you divide by the cost of volunteers, then you get the ratio.
And they've been coming to like all of my training sessions in the Bay Area, so I think they're also studying like. Although they haven't collected any data, but some aspect of this is also, I think, like what parts of training are effective, what parts aren't.
The West Ed people.
Yeah, have been sitting in on all of my San Francisco training sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're also interested in whether teachers learn as a result of participating in TEALS, and like how effective
that would be
is.
Interesting statistics. How successful has this been at spinning off teachers? Yeah.
Right, and so I mean, it's kind of like we're too young to know. I mean, there have been a couple, but it's we say it takes 2 years, and we haven't been around that long.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like another thing they're looking at. I think they also will eventually track students and see like, do they go on to major in computer science and like that kind of thing. It's a 5-year study, I think.
Yeah, I think one of the guys we had last year is going to go into computer science. I consider that pretty successful.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
We had a kid in Kentucky who's going to UPenn for computer science. That was like a cool story. So we're just starting to see kids actually graduate.
Mm-hmm.
But
was that the AP class now or the intro?
That was their AP, I think.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to see some success stories, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It would be good. It would be great to see the data.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be excited to see how that plays out.
I'm glad to hear that, but I don't know. I'm concerned that they might draw wrong conclusions. So, I mean, I know, for example, we're at Synergy here, and I was speaking with the principal, and she said that because Synergy doesn't have as much of an arts program, some of the people that are more interested in arts get funneled into computer science. So I wouldn't expect them to go into computer science. I wouldn't want that to be knocked as a fail.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm interested, of course, in gathering data, but
well, it is a STEM school, Science,
it is.
Technology.
It is.
But yeah, I see what you're saying. It's not like just because somebody doesn't go into computer science doesn't mean that we've like failed at what we're trying to do.
Right.
And I think the key things they're looking for are student knowledge and teacher training. I think those are like the two big tenets of the study. But it would be interesting to know that other data too.
Sure.
And hopefully, I mean, I'm sure they'll collect data on things like diversity, and I'd be interested to see like if they can. I don't think this is part of their study, but it would be great to know if there were specific things that we do that do and don't affect that, and if they can like pull that out for us.
Right. Because I mean, I know you had noted the female male ratio in our classroom is about 60-40.
Yeah, that's like this is like my as a personal thing. That's like my really big motivation, and so like that's like always the thing that I'm looking for.
I don't mean to sound sexist, but the females do as well as the guys.
Well,
that's not condescending.
No, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly. And so I'm always interested to see like if I can draw any conclusions, which like you can't by visiting 10 classrooms, like about what it is that.
Well, my hope too is it's a longer term thing. I mean, maybe a lot of these people won't go into computers, but maybe they'll go into some other technology area. And when they have kids in their families, they'll be familiar and encourage them to program. So that's what I'm kind of thinking about, the longer term.
Right, like it just becomes a familiar, normal
yeah, it's part of the culture
field, right? Yeah. And like nowadays, even if you're not in computing, it could become useful. Like there might, in your job, there might be something that you're trying to do where it's helpful that you know this skill.
Well, I mean, I just think business school. I mean, the programming helped immensely in business school because here we are, trying to code Excel macros. Most people are just doing very basic things, and there I go, like creating a whole user interface, data repository, and data analytics.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that hopefully we have that effect too. And I was just talking to somebody in LA, USD, an administrator, and he was talking about how they're also like lobbying with the state to try to get it to count for something so that kids are more encouraged to take it in high schools.
Yeah, in lieu of math or something.
Right, so there's like all these different pieces of it that are coming together, so hopefully that happens. And like making it easier for teachers to get a credential to teach computer science.
I wouldn't say maybe easier, but at least reward them if they do. So, give them an extra $5,000-$10,000 a year.
That's an interesting idea.
That that in college maybe they wouldn't take maybe a minor in computer science, but maybe take 2 or 3 years worth of teaching computer science in high school or whatever, and give them a certificate in that, and then be worth $5,000 or $10,000 more a year to teach.
Because I mean. Honestly, like I was looking at the numbers when I got out of undergrad, and the numbers weren't even close.
No.
Yeah.
Between the two.
No. If you've got a degree in computer science, you're probably not going to teach computer science in high school. You're not.
Yeah.
And that's why.
Well, that's the problem exactly.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
And you're like, well, or I could get this really well-paying software job.
Oh, this software company has a ball pit. I see.
Right, flexible hours. I can wear whatever I want. Yeah.
Laundry on campus.
Well, the other side of that though is the hours you're expected to work. I mean, there is kind of a downside.
I agree.
Some of
that
those guys work 60, 80 hours a week and more.
Unforgiving, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not conducive to good family life at home.
That is very true. And yeah, that part isn't always marketed openly. It's like, oh, they give you free dinner, but that means they expect you to stay for dinner.
Exactly.
You're like, oh.
I didn't tell the students that.
No.
I also didn't tell the general trends in the industry.
Ew.
No.
How are you guys?
We're collectively late.
No worries. It's a small group, so it's kind of chill. I think we'll be done early anyway. How's day one?
Like,
It's being recorded.
nothing's like, it's, yeah. Well, they have a new, software they're using to put the kids in their classrooms, and like, they did not learn it until, it's MySys, and they did not learn it until last Friday. And school started on Tuesday.
So there's like logistical.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's not.
Just giving us like time to.
Well, that's at least a more school-wide thing.
Yeah, because it's all of they just
Right.
students, so it's like everyone.
Everyone is just, well, that's fine then. At least that's like a recoverable problem.
Yeah, it should be fine. I just have to put Java on the computers because it needs the administrative password, and then after that we should start it. We started trying to get the lesson 1 together today. We all met
Great, cool.
at 12, so we all left. Dorsey and Caleb's collected
Oh,
late.
yeah, that makes sense.
We left. They're
Oh,
all,
nice.
Parking right now.
Oh, cool. So everyone's fine. Great.
Yeah.
So you guys all met. That's good. And then, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they came in with students, both of them. They went to the school for Java.
So are all the kids in the class the same ones that will be in the class, or is that part?
No, that
The
should
right
stay.
kid. Okay,
Yeah,
so
the
that's
right kid
good.
should be in the class. Only thing about that is all of them. Like a good portion of them know it's.
Okay.
Then they're in AP. It's gonna be like, oh my god,
Yeah, which is okay. You guys, it's probably keep the chart a little slower,
definitely.
but that's also not a bad thing.
No, it's so new.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Well, you, at least you already know the teacher. You guys know.
I met him once previously from when we did the whole
Gotcha.
She was friends with Sam. And so I'm just like, hey, I've seen you before. For years.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's good. I think a lot of first days were kind of just, but that's what we expect.
But I mean, Dr. Marty, which remember Dr. Marty, that's the whole thing. He kind of went through the first chapter because they really hadn't gotten there yet and started those 2 days.
Ah, okay, because school had already met before you guys got there.
He was asking like which one
Oh, okay, cool.
related to
But they don't have the book, so they don't
yeah,
know
the
the
book
answers.
isn't there yet.
But it's arriving though.
It's supposed to be on its way.
Good.
Someday.
As long as it's been ordered, that's a big deal. There are definitely classes that like everyone they're like, what? You just order a book? Oh, it's schools are fun, but that sounds good. At least class is happening, kids are in it.
20.
It's awesome.
More than that, I think?
Do you guys have a
35.
It's 30.
35?
35.
That is a
Oh, yeah,
sweet number.
That is a big number.
That's great. Did you? I'm obsessed with this.
35
Right now.
in the intro and 35, or 32 in the intro, plus potentially more, and 35 in the 80,
Sweet. That's awesome.
including one ELL, which is interesting. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I can ramp up pretty fast, and
You can say one more.
huh? My first name.
I know.
Yeah,
That should be
it's gonna be interesting.
interesting. Well, as long as you guys both speak the language of computers.
You know, I
A lot
wish
of
it was that
pointing.
easy, right? You could be like, hey, you know, mathematics, some language, you'll totally get it. But when they just don't, the key terminology is just not quite there. But it'll be good. There's fortunately one other student who is bilingual.
Oh,
which
cool.
They would pair her together, but at the same time, poor kid's gonna have to do her work and translate, and so she's gonna have to do more work. I don't want to burn her out.
Right. It's
It's a lot of work.
it should be an interesting challenge. Cool though. I'm glad that you met everybody. Class exists.
That was like the last thing that was finding out all the students are all can't understand anything.
I've never thought about
So at
it.
least
Just
you
because
know
I've seen it.
on
No.
Yeah.
week one, like
And then like week 2, watch
right,
why
like months in, like
Yeah.
why are
You
you
might be struggling every now and then.
why are you
Yeah.
never following correctly? Oh, you don't know what they
Why
are.
are you
Oh,
just
do you?
sitting there
Oh.
with your arms crossed?
Yeah,
the
I
entire
can
time?
always explain things out too.
Yeah, well,
Cool.
that might
Well,
not be a
that's
bad
good.
idea. Just ask, is anybody having trouble understanding the English?
So
I know
We're gonna
last year
talk
we had a couple of kids that had trouble
about some whole group things.
writing.
The AP part of
very
today is
well,
short.
you know. I don't know if
Yeah.
There isn't that much more to go over.
Yeah.
because of
So
okay.
you'll probably get to leave it.
the more
Oh, well,
Spanish
Unless you
people
wanna
or
hang out
English
and
people,
talk
you
about
just
stuff.
couldn't write the paper.
there might be some discussion.
It's inevitable.
Stuff,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's
In
a,
circumstances.
Yeah.
But it's something that just reminded me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No more than 10 minutes.
I would say,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can prolong it more if you break it up with short
I
things.
don't know about Anna.
So if you talk for 10 minutes and then ask like 2 really short questions,
Yeah.
then you can talk for like 10 more
I'm not
minutes.
too concerned.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't go more than like 10
And
to 15
Cornelius,
straight
everything
minutes
from
of
the
just
Antonio,
He's
he's
usually presenting for like 3-hour block.
right. I wouldn't do
Picking up
that.
things much better than I do.
I would definitely not.
Well,
You'll be able
like
to
I said,
see it
have
too.
cheat
Like
sheet
you'll
and
see
then
their
just take
faces
it
Yeah,
and
I
just be
do
like,
that.
I'm no longer
I think what
listening.
I'm going to try to do is
Then
have
you'll be
a
like,
cheat sheet,
okay,
sit
I'll
down
stop.
at the desk or talk to somebody,
Let me
I'm
ask.
gonna
You
say,
just break it up with
say
questions.
their
That's like
names.
one good way to
Yeah,
talk longer.
that's
Associate.
Okay, we have lots more.
Is it?
So
Yeah.
this is
I just say, how you guys doing?
my thing's still up. Sweet.
Boy, yeah.
Everything's going.
And I told you guys
Exactly.
4 o'clock.
You see a
So
blank screen. It's not going well.
yeah.
let's.
Well, I thought it was interesting. The center schools, they started doing the polycom.
Let's do this first because I think this is really important.
They're just like, oh, okay, here it's a.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's permissive.
Equal angles and equal sides.
And how to do that.
Yeah. Mhm.
We kind of heard this.
So what, they just went to a certain point and do it that way?
Yeah, they made a house.
Yeah. Mhm.
Sweet. Okay, I suppose we
Oh, I
can
see, they do.
start our
angles. Oh,
whole
exactly.
group portion of today, so we end on time. And it looks like now we have multiple people, which is great. So yeah, I think everybody here had their first day of school already, which is really, really exciting and awesome. And you're still here, and that's good. So we survived that. And
Dressing up part out of the way.
yeah, I checked all the boxes, you know. So that's good. And you know, as you can see, we're at the end of training, which is also exciting. And so today, the key part is for intro folks. We already talked a bit about curriculum. We're going to talk. A lot of this will probably be just about diversity and equity and like interfacing with students that are typically underrepresented in STEM and like strategies for being effective with them. And there's like lots of quantitative research on this that I want to talk about, which makes it a lot more concrete. And then we might go through mock teaching a couple of activities depending on how time goes. I don't know how helpful that exercise will be the more that I think about it. But that's something that we might look at if we have extra time. Yes.
Is this presentation online?
Yes, and it's actually, the one weird thing is it's under week 5. So everything for today is on week 5. So yeah, because we just like went out of order. So the really important thing is that now that training is over, like what does the rest of the year look like in terms of like interfacing with TEALS? And so there are multiple things that will happen. I travel around and just like every day visit a different classroom. And there are 35 classrooms that I would need to visit. So every 35th class day, you can probably expect to see me in your classroom. So that's not that often. It's like every 6 weeks. 7 weeks? 7 weeks. But I was in a couple classrooms this week, and then I'll probably be back in LA in a month. So I'll let you know ahead of time.
15 weeks, basically. You're doing all of California, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, well, so there are 35 classrooms in the entire state.
Oh, in the entire state. Okay.
Yeah, that I have to visit. So it would be like every like 6 or 7 weeks. So like I'll be around, but if there's a particular day that you like want me to visit, it's a little hard. If you're like, we really need you to visit, let me know and I can do that. Or if there's like, if I'm like, hey, I want to visit, and you're like, no, don't. That's gonna be a horrible day. Like we're not doing anything. Like that. Feel free to say that too, because
Or
it's more
picture
like,
day.
well, yeah. Which I mean, in the first week, that was like I wasn't trying to accomplish anything anyway, but I just wanted to like check it out. And so a lot of it is like I just want to check it out and like, see how it's going. And I'm also happy to help if you're like, we're doing this hard activity and would love to have an extra person. You know, if you tell me what to do ahead of time, I can like help. So that's, yeah, it's not meant to be threatening. The other thing is we'll continue to have monthly don't want to say exactly monthly, but close to monthly meetings like this with everybody that's here. That'll either be like partially training and probably a lot more just like sharing and collaborating on stuff.
Mentioning.
Say it again? No, because we love every part of this. Yes, that's totally fine. Possibly venting. And so, you know, keeping a community going. So there will be that. The link that used to be called training calendar, I think, on the dashboard has been changed to regional calendar. And so I'll like try to keep it up to date with like where I am and like also when these things are and like whatever else is going on. So that's like a good place to check if you're just like, what is happening?
Are you going to send an email out saying that you'd like to visit us?
Yes, I will certainly. Whenever that will go terribly for everybody involved because I'll probably come on the wrong day. So I'll let you guys know because it'll only be like certain times that I'm actually here.
Yeah.
I'll just be like, I'm gonna be here this week. This is my schedule. I was hoping to visit, you know, one of the days. What's good? And then also like if you want to meet with me for some other reason, that would be a time to be like, also can we chat about this or whatever. We also asked people from the building, so like the assistant principal, for example, if they would just pop in and visit you guys now and then. So they do that anyway, but like don't be surprised if like the assistant principal comes in and is just like checking out what's going on with this TEALS thing or like asking you questions about it, or wants to like meet now and then. So that's like another thing that we ask them to do. And then if you have other questions, I would start to use the discussion forum because like there will be less of this type of thing going on, but you still might be like, I want to teach this topic. Anybody else done it before? Or, you know, anybody else having this weird problem in class? So that's like going to become more and more useful, I think, as we get into the school year. That's generally what it looks like. Any other like school year related questions about how TEALS continues?
You were talking about that West End. Do you know, do they plan on visiting us? They visited us a couple
that's
times
actually a good
last
question.
year.
I should have said that. So you guys, first of all, should have maybe received an email from West Ed being like, hey, do you want to opt into this study that we're doing? So they're like an educational research firm that has a multi-million-dollar grant to study TEALS, and it starts this year. So they are soliciting people, all parts of TEALS, so like volunteers, teachers, students, to opt in to participate, and they'll ask you to like fill out some surveys. They may, I don't know if they're visiting classrooms outside of the Bay Area or not. So I know their study is Bay Area centered.
They were down here last year.
Yeah, so maybe it could be that if you opt in, they might want to observe class an X number of times. I don't know what else. If the school opts in, then they'll also ask you to give certain surveys to kids that are about, they're evaluating like gain in knowledge and then also effectiveness in training a teacher. So if you opt into it, there will be like some requests of that nature. And if you don't, then they won't ask you to. So
how can they evaluate whether the teachers want to?
I think teachers can also opt into the study, and then they will give them surveys. In the Bay Area, they're going to do very detailed case studies of certain classrooms, and I think that's like a more intensive thing where they will like pick specific kids and follow them.
What's the incentive besides charity? Academic.
Well, yes, that's a huge one. Helping broaden knowledge about computer science. I know.
I'm already doing that.
I know for the case studies they're offering a stipend.
Oh.
I don't know. You'd have to read the email to see what it is. If you just participate and do surveys, I'm not sure if you get anything. It's pretty lightweight, but I know it's for some people they are offering a stipend. So that might be available to you. Yeah, so that's that. Oh, the other thing to look out for administratively is that TEALS is shipping a box of raffle-related things to your school, and I think it's addressed to the teacher. And it'll have like tickets in it and like little prizes at your discretion. So if that like arrives and people are like, why did this box come? Or like you want to just like ask and see about it, expect that to be arriving at school soon.
What's the 1 pound box that required my signature this week that I couldn't get because it was delivered while I was at work?
Could have been a t-shirt.
Was it signature?
Yeah. T-shirt. Yeah.
Was it? Oh,
It's a very valuable t-shirt.
Apparently.
One of a kind.
I have to pick it up from UPS at like Tuesday now. But
Last year I was on the junior varsity. This year I'm a coach. So.
Yeah, I think we
I think
we
there's a
got
pecking order.
we got rid of the distinction this year actually. 'Cause that was,
I was kind of
Not well
insulted being on the
Yeah.
TV.
so it's probably a T-shirt.
Okay.
I think that's all the logistical things. Other questions?
Just one Xbox per class, right, for the year.
Yes. So there's yeah. So TEALS also. I have mixed feelings about this. So TEALS offers an Xbox One to every class. No, to every team, every volunteer team.
For the year.
Gets one Xbox One that you can use as a grand raffle prize for the entire year. So if you have 2 sections, you would wait to give it away until the very end of the year, but kids from the beginning could enter into it too. I have a decently strong moral obligation. I don't like giant raffle prizes, but the fact of the matter is it will arrive, I think. You won't get that with your kit now, but sometime in the end of the year, they'll probably send this.
Good. I am not guarding Xbox 9.
Yeah, no, they'll send it like right at the end.
Yeah, they'll send it at the end.
But if you want to come up with how you'll
make sure it's not
gather
bomb,
raffle
you know?
tickets for the whole year, or whatever system for how you will then have a drawing for that, that's another thing to look out for.
If Balmer can afford to pay $2 billion for the Clippers, it seems like they give us one for each class.
Take that up with TEALS headquarters, because I have 0. I do not deal with raffles and Xboxes. I have no.
Oh, if you're not using yours,
Well, I haven't received one either. Although I guess I will because I'm teaching a class. Huh. But yeah, I don't know. That's the other thing you can do is never tell kids about it, and then no, just kidding.
We talked about that a little bit today. I was asking about the incentive. Is it a better idea to dangle that carrot now or later, as far as getting them to really get in the participation part? Do you want to walk in and say hey, I got this Xbox for you in June, keeping it up 10 months until
Right. I mean, the grand prize is it's hard to make long-term incentives work the way they do.
Yeah.
Because long-term planning is a quality that is correlated with other types of characteristics that make you successful in school. The kids that can respond to it.
You could base the raffle on the number of raffle tickets, so the more you participate, the more raffle tickets, the more likely you are to, like the NBA draft.
Yeah. General lottery. I mean, it makes sense. We haven't even really discussed that.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I think you can probably introduce it after a couple of weeks. I would expect that shorter-term rewards will be more effective, actually.
Okay.
If you're on Friday, it's Tuesday, and on Friday we're giving away sunglasses, then that might be more immediately effective.
Are they leftovers?
I don't know.
And I also am not 100% sure if sunglasses are in the kit, so check that first. But it's that level of prize.
Yeah, we generally let them pick the prize, whatever they wanted.
Yeah,
and we sometimes, one of the prizes we did one time was a get out a quiz free ticket.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know what's in the kit this year.
Yeah.
So it might be sunglasses or it might be other stuff, but that's kind of however you want to use it. Or not use it.
Yeah. The first raffle prize, the guy did get out a quiz.
So yeah, I'm so excited about this. So the really main topic I want to talk about is diversity and equity in computer science. It's really important here, more so than in other states almost, because we have a tremendous amount of diversity of students in the country. And so a lot of your classes, just from the ones that I've visited, they already have diverse students in them, both gender, race, they are. And so it's really cool. It's I have this great opportunity to get all these people into computer science that in other places, in Seattle, not as much of a diverse population there, so it's harder to even make this a priority. But for us, we have this opportunity. And so you may have seen these statistics before, but it's pretty dismal. So on the left, 12% of computer science degrees go to women. That's not that great. On the right, that is the pie chart of AP computer science test takers, of which 15% across the country were women and 8% were students of color. And in some states, it's 0. The numbers, you can count them on your fingers. Five girls took the test and 2 Hispanic students took the test. It's something, it's crazy. And so the opportunity is really tremendous to fix this. And similarly, recently, lots of companies have been releasing their data. So like Google released their demographic data, and Twitter, and everybody's doing it. It's become very trendy. And it's so similarly dismal, and like you see this discrepancy between technical and non-technical roles.
Yahoo was exception, wasn't it? Yahoo was exception. There was one that was an exception. I think it's Yahoo.
I think Google, I think, had 80 or 83% were white males.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, but and of all these women, a lot of them are in non-technical roles, and you're like, well, that's even worse. Like, so and if you look at leadership, it's similar. So there's just like a tremendous opportunity. And so the frustrating part about this, I think, usually is you're like, okay, great, well, what is a strategy that works? Like, what do you want me to do? And so Google just published this paper, just published it, and it was called Women Who Choose Computer Science, What Really Matters. What they did, and I heard some of the researchers talk about this, but the question they were trying to answer is like, what exactly are the factors that influence a girl to pursue computer science in college? And so they took 91 different, they read a bunch of research basically on this, and they identified 91 factors that different people have claimed are important at one time or another in a research study. So they had this giant list of things that people say matters. And they were like, we're going to try to boil this down to like what really is and isn't significant. So they surveyed, I think, 1,000 girls and 600 men. And they asked them a bunch of questions about like each of these different factors, essentially in their lives. And then they tried to run correlations with whether those people studied computer science, and tried to see which ones seemed to have a statistically significant effect. And they were able to come up with 4 that largely accounted for most of the of the students that were studying computer science. And the whole paper is on week 5, but this is just like highlights. So the 4 things they came up with were social encouragement, self-perception, academic exposure, and career perception. And so social encouragement, it didn't seem to matter whether it came from family or peers, but somebody in their lives was encouraging them. So that's like a kind of positive thing, that even if it's not coming from their family, like it could be coming from you, or it could come from their friends, or just like having an encourager seemed to matter. Self-perception is an interesting one. What they mean is that these girls were both passionate about puzzles and problem solving, and also thought that those 2 things could lead to a successful career. So it was kids that for whatever reason really enjoyed problem solving, and then also were like, this turns into a lucrative career. And so how you instilled that is a whole other question, but they noticed that was really significant. Having exposure in school was really important. That's great for us. So both like structured, I can take a class in this, but also I can do a club or something after school or in the summer, but like some form of academic exposure to CS really mattered. So like being self-taught was not necessarily as impactful as having a structured place to learn it. And then perceiving the career as being diverse and having broad societal impact. So like these young women in particular seem to care that computer science can have a broad societal impact and not just that it was interesting. And so those were like the 4 things they pulled out as really relevant. Any like questions or thoughts on that? I think that's like super cool. They also did the following, and they pulled out some insignificant factors, things that just didn't seem to have any statistical influence. These are the ones that I think are really important. Ethnicity, family income, and parental occupation. So there seemed to be 0 correlation between ethnicity and whether they would study it, income and whether they would study it, and if their parents were or were not computer scientists. So if a girl had computer science parents but did not have those other 4 things, they were as likely as anybody else to study it. So I think that gives us a lot of hope that like it's the things that matter seem to be well within our control, and like things that we happen to be doing a lot of. So that was promising. Let's see where we are. So this is just some data to back up what the findings were. And so what are we looking at? This top chart is statements and to what extent the students in and not in CS agreed with them. So the statements, I love math and I love problem solving, and a larger percentage of CS majors as opposed to non-CS majors agreed with that statement in blue. So like this speaks to the part about how they find puzzles and problem solving interesting. It happened to be that a large percentage of girls in computer science love math and love problem solving. And a lot of the people that don't pursue CS agree with that statement. These ones are, I love taking apart things to see how they work, and the theoretical and abstract problems are interesting, and like very similar. So, you know, the idea of like showing kids that taking apart stuff is enjoyable is like a thing that correlates with studying computer science. Or showing them that abstract problems can actually be solvable and interesting correlates. These are like things that you might try to instill in kids, like in your class perhaps. And then this far one is like all the things that people think computer scientists learn and like how accurate they actually are. So they surveyed kids, 80% of them were like, I have no idea what they learned, which is interesting. And then the 20% that did have an idea, they broke it down. The majority of them said things like programming, but then there's like computer repair, computer stuff, networking, like how computers work, and a very small number of kids said stuff like problem solving, using computers to solve problems. So there's also like this wide range of perceptions of what it actually is, some of which are like more or less accurate. And a lot of people who just don't know what it is at all. So tremendous opportunity there to just be like, this is what it is, actually, and then see if that translates to wanting to study it. Questions about those or thoughts? Yeah, the paper is awesome. You got to read the paper.
What's the participant demographic? You said it's Google. Right?
Yes.
Was it students in the Bay Area, students around the nation?
This is a good question. I believe it's more, I don't think it's geographically isolated. I wonder if I can quickly find the answer to your question.
I'm wondering because, like, I think attitudes would be slightly different when you compare like something like the Bay Area where technology is everywhere and it's, you know, in schools and the home versus like South Central LA where it's not.
Methodology.
So, I'm curious if the
Well, I find it interesting that they say family income was insignificant.
Yeah.
I don't quite believe that.
Yeah,
Respondents.
it's hard to believe too because that family income directly affects
What-
the
The schools, and,
Exactly.
yeah, right.
Exactly.
everything, yeah.
Ah, okay.
Students don't have computers.
yeah, at home or in school.
Yeah.
So geographically and academically diverse from all regions and colleges across the U.S. 50% pre-college, 50% recently graduated or attending, 50% interested in or currently studying computer science, and 50% not. And they say they tested all the factors concurrently to control for highly correlated variables. I guess because then they can.
So they do it out to a causal.
Right. And so, yeah, that's the methodology. And then there's a lot here about, they kind of like go in each of these specific 4 things and like tell you more. It's a pretty short paper though, good read, I think. So, yeah, so that end, it seems reasonably diverse. This is just like a cool graphic, I guess, of like, when they ask students who are familiar with computer science on the left and then not to do like word association, this is like what they said. So kids who don't know anything about it think it's terrible. Like super boring, nerdy, nerdy, nerds plural, difficult, but then kids who know it seem to think it's like fun and interesting and exciting and challenging and innovative and all the things that you believe that it is.
So all the people who are unfamiliar. Okay, so it doesn't explain why they're not. It doesn't imply that they're not interested on the right side. It's just they're
Right. It's, I think, this block of kids
okay.
who
So
are
it's
like, I don't
geeky
know.
if you know about it. It's nerdy if you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
They got one thing right on, right? Sitting right at the end.
Right, it's sitting. Then there's one that's just no.
Hey, if you work in a server.
There's like nothing else, just no. So, I don't know. I think it's telling. There's some things that, they think it's challenging. They think it has to do with the future and the internet. They think it's interesting, even though they don't know what it is. So, there are like some things about it that are still promising, but
That's interesting. One guy, they got cool, the fourth one up in the middle column there on the right.
I mean, I see the interest. I see uninteresting also. So it's I mean, you just see kind of a range, but boring is the first one, which is kind of crazy. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Boring, hard, and difficult are like the first four that it's like an immediate turn off.
Hey, just like if you were like, do you want to study the subject that like fits that description? I mean,
No.
It sounds terrible.
Hard and difficult. No.
But like future, fun, interesting, like I don't know. Yeah, so there's like a clear divide between if you just like don't know what it is, the perception is that it's terrible.
Can
No, that's not what we're going for. We're going for social encouragement. And so I guess I think the important thing to think about now that we know all this information is like the course as it stands now, because you all have already started teaching a course, or in theory. Like, are there parts of it that you think might be detrimental to encouraging the girls in your class to pursue the field? Are there parts of it that might actually be positive? Like, have we already, without maybe being intentional, included some things that are positive? And then, like, what are some things that you can do in your class to be intentional about encouraging them to pursue this college? So I think that's a good table discussion topic. And so if you want to take a couple minutes to do that, let's do that.
Well, for me, I just want to know that computer programming is not my career choice. I did fun stuff. I worked for the airline. I the vast majority of jobs.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to go.
It's such a terrible thing about
But you have to do.
There's like so few female.
How many years have you been programming?
roles.
14.
14?
17 years. Yeah.
Relate to.
I actually started at the Central Library, and my boss was the network manager.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of when I first tasted it. And I taught myself a lot of
Yeah.
I did get my bachelor's degree
That's a hard sector
so
to sell.
in
So,
computers.
in terms of the first question, what do you think is detrimental?
Detrimental is, I think because that list of items, I mean, it's even in this group here, in my job, I'm pretty much single female. Because it's just something that women, it's not exciting. It's not, it can be very social for somebody that's in the computers, so the whole, what you grow up thinking about computers is, you're boring, you're just fat and sit at a computer. That's all that's all you hear about it. That's all I heard about it.
Yeah. I think guys are encouraged to go more mechanical type things. They love trucks and construction equipment. That's what they play with as toys. Little girls, they get Beethovens and dolls.
Yeah.
So right away, there's a huge gap there. Isn't it?
It seems like
It's got to be clear that it's more about constructing things, building things.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So, like,
girls,
I think the women in our class, which we're better than 50% female in our class.
oh wow,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, this building is 80. Now the school system here is 87% Latino too. So we score high points on diversity, ethnicity. But when they see something working, that's what I love about this BYOB. They get immediate feedback out of it. It's, oh yeah, look at that. That's neat. Yeah, that's priceless. And I don't know what's.
I can't really think of anything about this course that would be detrimental.
No. I think you just got to treat them as people. I mean, just I don't care whether you're male or female. Do you understand what's going on? I think that's a big part of it.
I'm just going to plead ignorance here. I'm telling you, I thought I was giving clear instructions, and then to go over and see people not have written anything down, it's like, I'm not qualified to answer that question. I'm not a teacher.
Was it just women that didn't do that, or was it?
No, but I have to say, there were some that were getting and going, but there were other people that I had lost.
Oh, you mean
And
as far as...
So for all I know, there is some course material that's going to lose them, but I don't know what it is.
Like we were talking about the other day. I mean, just think of the first algebra class you took. I got a D in my first algebra class, and our instructor failed it, you know. So, I mean, that, you know, not everybody, you know, hits the ground running, you know. You got to ease them into it a little bit. You know, people can catch up.
So I guess that would be a detrimental factor, is that you don't notice that kids aren't catching it. You just kind of roll it over.
Well, the only other thing I'd probably say is that I would say boys tend to play more video games than girls. And since this is heavier into projects dealing with video games, that potentially there may be a disconnect between their interests.
Yeah, right.
You know, I mean, that's the only thing I could throw out there.
Yeah.
Although there is a bedroom background in the unicorn, and they're built-in graphics, so I'll use those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, positive impact? I think just the programming, you know, thinking.
I think just removing the apprehension of it, since you're intro as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just taking the apprehension out of it, it's huge. Because there's no longer that mystique about it. That, you know, that, you know, what was that whole Barbie full string math is hard? I think that was terrible. Right. I think this removes that mental block about the subject.
Well, I think one thing too is this is one of the few classes in high school that goes into logic, and and ors and knots. I mean, you don't see that.
Well, it's problem solving.
Well, it's thinking about, you know, for this thing to die, you have to have the key and you have to be touching them, you know. And, you know, just to get them to think that way.
Well, and I also think too that, you know, at least what I see is that there's so many ways to get the right answers that creates a lot of collaboration and discussion and those types of, you know, am I supposed to go right or am I supposed to go down? You know, they think that there's a certain way that it has to. And it's like, no, you have that choice. That's your, you know. You know, if you get the, you know, solution at the end, in theory you've done it right, but now we can talk about how what can be done to improve it or optimize it, some of those
What are
things.
the good features and what are the bad features? Yeah, this guy we worked with last year, he always liked to have 2 or 3 solutions, you know, encourage people to do that. I think it's different. Class to increase female participation in pursuing CS in college.
Try to answer.
I guess give them all Xboxes.
Congratulations on your diligence in class. Here's a diversion.
I don't know. The one thing I did do is I played the video, what they don't teach you in school.
Mm-hmm.
That's one where there's a couple of females that are talking about coding and stuff. So I think clearly trying to come up with examples of women reinforcing computer science. I think just like you try to focus on.
Facebook
Video we
has
showed,
great,
you know, with
female programs.
geeks and everybody. Was there any women in that, or was it just 1 or 2?
Dropbox now.
Yeah, Dropbox is one of the ones.
You just have to
Yeah.
think about
Yes,
that.
female.
There were the ratios.
Yeah, I know.
The ratio was low in that video. Oh, sorry, we showed a video in class. Zuckerberg.
Chris Bosch.
Yeah, just talking about programming. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
There wasn't,
actually-
there wasn't any
the
women.
female ratio
That-
was.
There was 2. There were 2.
There were 2 women in there? Yeah.
They couldn't get Melissa.
Yahoo, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That would have been
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Yeah. Maybe she was busy.
I don't know. But the girls I've seen so far, they're great coders.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
they were sharp.
Yeah.
In the top, you know, 6 or so,
That's
about
signal
half
that
will
we
be
should
female.
come back as a group and share.
That's what we needed to do.
As an off-topic comment.
I think precursors to programming. Like, they don't remember.
Did you guys want to share maybe like some interesting things that came out of your conversation?
I have a boy and a girl at home. My son is 18 and he's going off to college. My daughter is she's a junior in high school. So for me, I pick and choose situations where I'm intentional about not treating them differently. So I was just talking about how like in our classroom that we visited today's program, 34 kids, maybe 6, 7 kids, girls, and yeah, it's about 7, 8 kids, right? And then you see that you, as soon as you see them and you see in their eyes that they're there to just see what happens, what are all these boys up to, that's one thing, because there's 20 other boys there, and then they want to see sort of that. They are really, I don't know if they're actually specifically interested in computer science, but then you have to be intentional about encouraging them and develop that interest. And one thing I'll tell you, because what came about is, well, this girl, she's extraordinarily good in some drawing, some pretty things. She can pretty up a lot of stuff. And usually the idea is you can use technology to develop the way you can do something. You can take a random thing, pretty it up, that's your ability. So now, here's technology to actually do all that. And that's, I think, the wrong way of encouraging a girl to get into technology or anything related to computer science. And I was telling our group here how in my studio, a bear, earlier, 10, 15 years ago, a bear, as long as it was brown, it had 2 ears and short hands and short legs, it was looked fluffy or a little different, and we were fine. Now we don't treat a bear as a brown object. Our character animators, we do it totally differently. And then the character animator does not do a brown bear. He just does the animation of the bear. But the guy who does fur and skin comes back and puts fur on it. So when the bear heaves, the fur moves, the chest moves. We have intentional flying of the bear. So no bear is perfect. Round eyes and ears properly shaped. So we look at the character. The brown fur comes over, the skin dye comes, and we put in all those things. And then we go back and say, well, we'll have to include a flaw, because an intentional introduction of flaw is what makes it authentic. And with 3D, authenticity is more and more up for scrutiny. Earlier, as long as we gave you a brown bear, you were good. Now with 3D authenticity, you said, no, that doesn't look like right, because he does not look natural. So we want to make it as natural, as authentic as possible. Part of making something authentic is including a flaw. And all this is done through technology. That does not mean whether it's a girl or a boy who's doing it, they can all do it. You know why? Because it is the art of telling a story. As long as we're telling a great story, the guy who is animating or the girl who's animating doesn't mean anything to us. We have producers who are women and directors who are women. Down the line, I have hardly seen any animator who is actually pretty much all these guys, all the characters, light, paint effects. I'm not saying that there's no love at all, a lot of girls, but that's where, as technologists, when we introduce the concept of technology or the love for technology, it doesn't have to be because this is a girl and she likes pretty things. She likes to make the bear look beautiful with eyelashes for the bear. That's not how we encourage our girls. So we have to be intentional about it, because we're telling a bigger story. And always, we went to this school, just behind the scenes, we're thinking that ethnicity does not matter, that family income does not matter. That's, I think, a total myth. Because it definitely does matter. We go to our school, there are a lot of kids who, except they come to the school, they can't log in, They don't have a username, password. They don't know anything about that. They don't know what a shared drive is or what Google Drive is. So there's a lot of things, a lot of challenges, and that has to change. If it does not change, then our goal is lost. And it's my this perspective in the last 3-4 days that I've been at this school.
Yeah, I expect that it'll become more interesting.
Yeah.
If you spend more time there.
Yeah, it's a fascinating opportunity. That's how I see it, to develop myself in all of these areas. And hopefully,
Interesting. Did you guys want to talk a bit about what your discussion was around, especially coming from a totally different course?
I think a lot of it's just like women and men are raised. Men are much more into building things, trucks, construction equipment, and so on, taking things apart, and women are much more into taking care of babies and stoves and Barbie dolls and things like that. So it's hard to break that.
Yeah.
And I for myself, I just try to treat everybody the same. Say, here's what we're doing, here's how you do it, and just go forward. I mean, I think if anything, it's not detrimental. It's actually, I think, empowers women to see that, to be able to program something and see it work. It's very empowering.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that is sort of the opportunity that we have. That you might get a lot of kids that, because of whatever society tells you should be, haven't had exposure to stuff like this. So it's an opportunity where they can try that.
Well, and some of our female students, and we're very fortunate, or I guess we're 50% or better female in our classes here, are just as good as the best guys. So they can do it.
Yeah, it's certainly not an ability gap. And yeah, we're at the point where almost nobody has exposure to this stuff before class a lot of the time. So everyone's coming in kind of on the same level, and that's where the opportunity is to touch everyone equally.
Well, I think too the long-term benefits there. If you teach these kids to do this and think like this, their kids in their community that will be raised. The rising tide raises all ships, kind of.
Right. So hopefully in the future, you don't see as much of that misperception and stuff like that. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just an important thing to have in the back of your mind. I will say one more thing that I think is interesting, or speaks well to the idea of being intentional. So, I was reading some study about somebody went in to study a particular teacher, and the teacher was complaining because they had girls in I think it was math, that were struggling. They were like, all the girls in my class are doing worse. I don't know why. I'm not a sexist person. I don't know why. And so this person came in to study them, and they measured a lot of things. And one of the things they measured was how often the teacher called on girls, how long they allowed them to respond, how often they made eye contact with girls, and a lot of weird body language things. And there were huge discrepancies. They looked at female students less often, when they were speaking. They called on them less often. They gave them less time to speak. They allowed guys to interrupt more often than they allowed girls to interrupt. Lots of weird things. And then the researcher was like, oh, this is really interesting, and studied a bunch of female teachers and found the same thing. And when I read this study, I was like, oh my god, I'm sure that I did this in my class too. It was crazy. It was just, it brought out to me how intentional you have to be. You just aren't aware of the things that you might be doing. And once it's pointed out to you, it's all those little things make a difference. So that's kind of why I want to talk about it at the beginning of the year, because I think then if it's in the back of your mind, naturally you'll be just more aware of your interactions. There's a lot of potential. So yeah. Cool. Okay, so that's women. But I have one other cool study that I want to talk about. And then we'll kind of wrap up there. But this one is more general. So this is a professor at Stanford who studies education psychology, and he studies this thing, or his talk, at least that I heard, but specifically around stereotype bias, and like whether students' own internalization of stereotypes affects their behaviors, and like ways you can counteract that. And so he spoke at the NC WIT summit. So NC WIT is like a whole organization about getting women, national something, women in technology. So this is not really specifically about women, but it applies. And so the topic of the talk, the stereotype threat, which is the idea that somebody is concerned that they will be judged stereotypically. So like they walk into a situation and they're like, oh, I feel like they're going to judge me because I'm a woman, or I feel like they're going to judge me because I'm short, or it's like you're internalizing it, whether or not it's actually happening. And so an example would be like this girl. This is a random picture that fits the description of this girl. She is a female engineering graduate student, and she said, for some reason I didn't do good on tests. You know, I would get stuck, I would feel pressure, I would think everyone else knows what they're doing, and it must be because I'm a blonde female athlete and I'm not supposed to be doing well in physics. And so no one told her these things. She's just internalized a stereotype about herself, and as a result is getting anxiety during tests and like isn't doing her best. And similarly, this is a Texas state senator who said, you know, I knew I was as intelligent as everyone else, but for some reason I didn't do well on tests. You know, maybe it was because I was nervous, but there's a lot of pressure knowing that if you fail the entire race. So we have a tendency to do things like, wow, girls, it's so great that you're in this class. I hope that you could really change the face of computer science for women. And they're like, holy cow, like that's a lot of pressure. Or like we make a big deal, like, oh, it's so cool that we have like 3 African American students in here. Way to go! And then they're like, okay, well now I'm nervous because it's now very clear that I have this great responsibility.
Isn't that a kind of a contradiction though, in that you don't want to make a big deal out of it to avoid pressure on the student, but at the same time, the field as a whole, you do want to make a big deal out of it because you want equity. So,
well, I think it's more of a messaging thing, where it's less of like, I'm so glad you're doing this because now you have this great responsibility, as opposed to like, you should really pursue this because it will do these things for you. And, you know, yeah, I think more a messaging thing, and perhaps the way in which you're doing it. So calling it out in front of the entire class, as opposed to like giving it your time. Hey, I want you to know that like, this might be hard for you, but like here's why it's important that you're doing it. As opposed to like, guys, look at these 2 girls and what they're doing. And then they're like,
there's 2 of them and there's 30 of you. Look how special they are.
Right. Yeah. And then you're like just creating this anxious scenario. So he was interested in figuring out the effect that these kinds of things have on performance, and then if there are ways to counteract that effect without like momentous changes in everything that we do. And so here's just a piece of data to see whether these things impact performance. So he's like, yeah, just because they have that stereotype, do they actually perform less well? And so he tested the white men can't jump stereotype and had white men come in to jump. And in some scenarios on the left, there was a white experimenter, and then on the right, there was a black experimenter. And the thing that's being measured is the difference in their jumps from their first and second jump. They found that when there was a white experimenter present, they improved more on their jumping. And there's like, this is just like one snapshot, it's a whole study. But it's interesting, it's like, oh, okay, so no, the experimenter didn't say anything different. They didn't say, are you aware of the white men can't jump stereotype? But it manifested itself in some way. And so it's all due to like internal perception. So that's just an illustration of the fact that coming in with that stereotype can in fact impact how you perform. And so this is like a redundant question, but essentially we can expect that like students might come into our class having internalized stereotypes for a variety of reasons. And so like you can expect that girls might have internalized a stereotype, or like minority students, but you also might have majority students who've internalized a stereotype of something, like I'm not a nerd, this isn't for me, or like I am a nerd, this is for me, I'm supposed to be good at this, why am I struggling? Like this is exactly the thing that I was meant to do, and now I'm not, I'm doing terrible. And so there are like a lot of different reasons why you might have kids having internalized some kind of stereotype that would then impact your performance. So that's like a really terrible challenge. It's like, well, great, how am I like fix that, right?
Yeah, that brings up an interesting thought. At the end of the year, or at the end of the semester, we always give our students kind of a questionnaire, what were the 3 best things about this class, what were the 3 worst, and so on, what would you change? It'd be interesting if we just have them identify male or female, see if there's any difference there.
That's a good question. I know that TEALS, we used to give a survey, and West Ed is now going to give the survey, so I don't know if this will be included, but it would ask a lot of like self-perception questions, like to what extent do you agree with statements like, I am good at computer science, I am able to write a program, I'm proficient in the language, and like all that stuff, before and after, to see growth. And like our aggregate data suggests that like there is 87% of students grow in those areas. But we haven't looked at, like, we also ask gender, race, like a lot of other stuff, and we haven't looked at like those.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that.
Yeah, we have to do this. That's
what was the biggest change? Did women experience the biggest change from, like you say, maybe nerdy to cool and things
right,
like that?
And like feeling proficient or like being, perceptions of that. So yeah, that would be an interesting question. I should look at it because we have the data. So then knowing these kids are coming in, it's like, well, what can you do about it, right? So he boiled down these like 1, 2, 3, 4 strategies. We'll just talk about one today. I think that's probably sufficient. But if you want to read about the other ones, they're all like pretty awesome. And well, the point was that they were strategies that you could implement in a short amount of time that would have long-lasting effects. And like you could have small actions that then like counteract these stereotypes. So the 2 like greater categories were, 1, like helping students have an optimistic narrative of adversity, so seeing failure as a good thing or as a positive opportunity. And then the second one was having them have an optimistic narrative of themselves, so like thinking highly of themselves. And if you could like accomplish either of those 2 things, you could help them counteract the stereotypes that they felt. And so really actionable strategies, wise criticism, which is why we're going to talk about it. And so the idea is like, in the moment when students are experiencing failure or adversity, this is something that you can do. So question really quick, what are some examples where you think students might experience failure or adversity in the course of your class?
Like getting this first homework set, you're going to experience failure and adversity.
You're really happy about it?
Oh, no.
But yeah, so definitely like perhaps the first assignment.
One of the things that we found already from the first week is that some of the other concepts that they're supposed to come in with aren't there. So we're having them draw geometric shapes, but then some of them don't remember some of the basic geometry. How many, what are the angles add up to in a pentagon? What are the angles add up to in a square? Things like that. So some of the foundation isn't there, which means that we can't build on what's not there.
Yeah, so like seeming to fail at a computer science task because of an unrelated lack of prior knowledge. Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, I think some people just respond to challenges and pick up things quicker than other. I always think of my first algebra class. It's got a D in it. So.
Right, like
it was just foreign to me. So
yeah.
They got to ease into it. Some people just jump in, and some of them won't.
Like the kids that just happen to not pick up something as fast and then see the gap with their classmates. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and you got to spend more time with them. Let the other people give them extra credit things and so on. Try to catch the not so fast ones up.
I also noticed, just from when I was observing one of the classes, a lot of kids just struggling with the idea of when you're programming, you can just change stuff. Like you can make a mistake, but it's okay, and you can just change it. If they were like struggling to get started, I'd be like, okay, well, they'd be like, what does this block do? Like, I don't know, give it a try. And they're like, well, I can't do that. What if it's wrong?
They're like afraid to fail, or they are unable to come up with the entire solution all at once.
Right. It's one of those.
One of those.
Yeah. Like a lot of times, I think it is a fear of failure because in like other subjects, it's not that easy. Like if you do the whole thing wrong, you're like, well, I just wrote all that work out and I had to erase it wrong and I have to start over. But in computer science, it's like, oh, you just clear it and start over. And they were like, I can't just type in a number. I don't want to try it. Tell me what it does. And so there's that, right? Or alternatively, they're like, I don't know where to start. And that's not the whole square. I'm not just going to draw that line. And so those are, I think they're all examples of like even just like small instances of failure that hold kids back.
I know in my case, I always like this. If I see a concrete example of something, I can imitate it pretty well. But you just say draw a square.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of just being like, well, where do I start?
Yeah.
And
That's where the scaffolding comes in, right? Instead of telling them, do this, you lead them up to...
Yeah, scaffolding, yeah, right.
like, yeah, you can show model something, show a finished product, all those examples with some concrete.
My biggest concern, aside for adversity, is really going to be in the starting attitude. So, like, some of the students will come into the class expecting that this is either going to be a class I'm going to easy A in, or a class I'm not going to have to do much work in. I have this particular vision, computer science being a game, it's going to be awesome day one. And then you come in and you like kind of give them the bigger picture of what computer science actually is, give them the syllabus of what it is that they're going to expect, and then all of a sudden they're going to come off and be like, well, that's not what I expected it to be. And so they sabotage themselves and like not interested in it. They could, turn around and say, oh, well, that's even better than I thought it was going to be, but, you can't really predict that. Yeah.
That's true. And, I mean, being what it is, like, it will not appeal to everyone.
Right. But that's our challenge, right? Is to try to make it appeal to everyone.
Yeah, and I think it relates a little bit to a bit of what you were saying before of, like, just describing it in a different way. Or, like, we message it, I mean, everything is messaged a certain way, but it's not like bucketed like that, necessarily.
Right.
Even if, you can actually look at what we're doing a whole bunch of different ways, like just an interesting problem, or I think math is cool, or I like calculators, or it's just hard, it's just a hard thing and now you figured it out, or like, how do I make this computer do what I want? So it's like, I think part of it is just thinking about how to like, rephrase the activities.
Some appeals.
Yeah, like don't think about the fact that you're building a calculator, but the fact that you're making this computer do stuff that would take you a long time, or whatever it is. And so the strategy that this is like a very specific strategy. That's why I like it. The idea behind feedback is often a time when kids experience failure, is that you hand them back this thing that they thought they did good on, and there's red marks everywhere, and they're like, oh my god, I did terrible. And you're going to give tons of feedback at different times. So they did this experiment with African American college students in an English class, and they returned feedback on an essay, and they messaged the feedback two different ways. So in one group, they just said, I'm giving you these comments because you now have feedback. Edit your essay. And to the other group, they said, I'm giving you these comments because I have high standards and I know that you can meet them. Edit your essay.
Hate to be in that control room.
Yeah.
So it was like...
But it's the same grading, just the
Yes. And it's the same essay, and they measured how many of those students actually went back and edited the essay upon receiving that feedback, which is the whole idea of like improving upon failure rather than seeing it as the end. And in the control group, 17% of those students edited their essay, and 71% of the other students edited their essay. And so simply being like, I'm giving you this feedback because I believe that you can improve, was very different than just being like, that's feedback. That's what you do with it, which we often do. We're just like, well, here's your grade. And they're like, oh, okay, that is a measurement of what I know. I did terrible. As opposed to like, here's your grade. The point of the grade is so that you can look back and see what you messed up on and improve upon it. And they're like, ah, okay, that's different. But the cooler part about this is that 7 years later, they went back to look at the students in these two different groups, and it wasn't an isolated thing. So throughout the course, they gave feedback differently. And the students who were in the wise criticism group, more of them were attending college than the other group. So his point was that it's an isolated intervention that you did in one course, but that can have more long-lasting impacts on the way that they give feedback and the way that they respond to failure. So like us being in a scenario where like we give a lot of feedback, whether it's formal feedback or not, the way that you're messaging it can have a really big effect on kids. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, is that white students group an intervention group, or is it just not?
Which is in terms of like what type of feedback did they get? That's a good question, and I am not sure.
Was it just the
They only did the 2 groups on black students. I don't know in which group white students fell, and that's a good question. My suspicion is that it was the non-wise feedback.
Non-wise feedback?
Yes.
Really?
So like the control group?
Yes. That is my guess. I think the point here is that those students were not experiencing stereotype effect.
Oh, I see.
And so the intervention is irrelevant. But the black students in the writing course, the whole reason for the intervention was that they were within the context of college experiencing stereotype effect. And so they were trying to counteract it. I think that's the premise of the experiment, although I'd have to read the paper again. And so they didn't require intervention. So yeah, that's just like one thing to think about. Questions or thoughts or otherwise. Okay. That's kind of the end of what I have, I think. Let me just double check this.
I don't know about the racial demographic, the other groups, but I think ours is pretty interesting that it's 100%. I think both of the classes. So
That's fairly close to what you guys have.
is that what you guys can do? So
What's that?
A large percentage of minority students.
I think it's 97% Latino in the whole school there. I think 87% are, get the free lunch thing, free breakfast.
Yeah, that's interesting because then you gotta wonder, like, is that actually a better outcome because of your own experience? Like, there isn't the threatening group, but then at the same time, what other things have been internalized? So, I don't know, it's really complex.
Is the threat really the presence of a person in the classroom that they're comparing himself to, or the stereotype of subject matter coming into the classroom?
Right. My suspicion would be that it's the second. At least around computer science, but I think it carries
boring,
with it
right?
so much baggage. Yeah. It's boring
It's
and
hard,
no.
it's difficult.
That it almost and actually I think in the case of computer science too, a lot of students experience, whether or not they fall into a minority group, everybody's like a minority. So like a lot of students might feel that weird stigma and like stereotype. Think for whatever reason that it's not for them, not because of some minority, not because of a majority group, but just because like nobody studies this thing.
Right.
I think in our responses, well, you read them from last year. Only a couple students said that they didn't like the course or wouldn't recommend it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that speaks very positively, I think, to what we
Some
do.
of them said it was the best class they ever took. Don't change anything. We got some comments like that.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think, that's what I like about the intro course too.
Yeah.
It's very accessible, very broad.
Mm-hmm.
And then they quickly realize, like, oh, this is not what I thought computer science was. And it's actually awesome. And so that's kind of the opportunity. AP more of a challenge, but still somewhat true.
Yeah.
More pressure on you got to take that exam. You got to teach to that. I mean, you're much more down.
That's an interesting thing.
I mean, like the subject you talked about cheating. I think your students are much more likely to cheat than students, taking the intro.
Simply because of the amount of pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible.
And except for taking a test, I almost say, let them cheat or talk all they want. The important thing is if they learn something,
Well, if they're cheating, presumably
they're
learning. But...
I mean, short of, rote copying. I mean, but if they're just, talking to somebody else and learning something, fine,
Yeah. Another
The first speech and told them that's going to be really hard.
There you go, reassure.
I like it. It's not going to be easy, so it's not easy.
Laying,
half you
Yeah.
See the guy next to you, he won't be there next semester.
They won't be here by the end of the year. Yeah, it's great.
But, you know,
And everybody
realistic
drops the
expectations.
glass.
So, yeah, I'll just wrap up. That's like the end of the whole group portion of this, but I really think it's important for us to be intentional about being inclusive. But I will say one thing. I was in classrooms and listening to what kids were saying, and I have to say that already, like, you're already having an impact, at least from what I saw. So this is a classroom, Lancaster High School. None of them are here. But, like, you know, really full room of kids, programming, things I overheard, stuff like, I'm having too much fun drawing a square, which is really, or like, wait, don't tell me, I want to figure it out. And then a student actually, this is in your class, who was like, I said, what are you doing? She said, we're learning how to draw shapes. All you have to do is change this one number here, the degrees. And so, like, it's already feeling like these surmountable challenges, and they want to figure it out themselves, and they're enjoying themselves. So, super excited. I was very inspired after visiting classrooms.
Not only that, but it really impacts, you know, the geometric shapes. If you're just looking at a piece, something drawn on a paper, and you don't get to see it drawn out yourself, it's a huge difference. It really is.
Right. Yeah, thinking about, like, this kid who said I'm having too much fun was drawing a square.
Yeah.
A square.
And, like, thinking about a square as, like, something exciting and fun is, I think, a very different way of looking at the world.
It's a hell of a feedback, though. I mean, it's something I did, and I put it there, and it did, you know, it did something, yeah.
And, like, I understand how to change these numbers. And
I don't have to wait till next week when the teacher returns my paper.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just thought that was exciting. So keep doing what you're doing. And intro people, you are free to go, or if you want to hang out and discuss whatever you want to discuss, you can do that too. Yeah, that's the end of summer training.
We get a diploma? Or get out of jail free ticket.
I'm getting on a plane later today, so I can take none of it. So.
You can hang out with my mind and say fun time or something.
Sweet. Well, you can talk
and he's in Tustin, so we'll talk about anything be learning.
I've got to go.
Bye. Take care. See ya, Jason. Thank you, you too. Your cups. Okay. Oh, and here's some. One of your.
We've only had one. Well, so this one met on Tuesday. First time. Yeah. And his block schedule is class.
I can just take you wherever.
First week is they all so scheduled. So our first day is
Get out!
And so we haven't really had a lot of instruction.
Our class is definitely more needs a little more.
She said that he would prefer speech instruction on
Yeah. You guys would strand in a part of the
And also tell them that reality is very totally different.
Is it out of your way?
Yeah. That's totally fine. Okay. Doesn't need every day.
Sorry to get that first.
We're almost finished driving early anyways, we're just gonna go over.
Yeah, it's still too soon, I think.
Sure, out there will be fun.
Yeah.
Right now, this stuff comes really not fun, but it's connected.
Like conversation, we talk about
Hard. And then finally, you know, 5 years later, this is fun.
My son always used to
that every day.
Yeah.
I can help you with that.
You're like, oh, there's no these are we just
Just like how many kids speak in the chat. Okay.
when I find on registration day, they give them 48 credits. People have to pass full on the first day.
She said thank you, sure, please.
Then he's like, wow. Because it was not fun. It ain't fun when you were given. He's going to samples.
I'll have a friend who's doing this right now. He wants to be a cardiovascular.
Come at it. Yeah, he's freshman. Yeah. And well, 4 years of high school, very kids on and so many people. It's structured, but it's and finally, that's because it's just what the admissions officer said. We don't have any control. And so on the registration day we went to, he was not even registered for any first year classes. And then we stood for an hour talking to everybody. Oh, we're treating him as a sophomore. And first year course also we kind of pass it on. So anyhow, so 48 so you have 8 credits. And so all most of the biology, state, chemistry, and math, sophomore. So then, later on campus, we were touring, and I said, "Oh, you're your thing." I know where I stopped. I stopped. So get this one, this few months. You know, just my point is like trying to assess kind of concerned about because you guys just can't be easy. At the same time, you can't be smart.
No, yeah. Now when you get to it, like,
And it can't be too hard because we're selling them concept.
Now is the best time. Well, they do have a second thing, I'm sure. Oh, yeah, you didn't like out. It's just you get to see the strict lesson. Yeah.
I think it was more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe so, your Instagram.
No.
I think dancing on the street. Yeah. That's it. Well, I mean, when you know happens. Yeah. Maybe in the 90s we didn't have like graphics and That's a lot of spring.
And then it's novel, and then you go into college. And did you pass with that university? What have you passed? Oh, you've done it. Didn't tell them that. All you need is give it 3. And you're through. Jeez. So, we did not hear this. We were in touch with a lot of the kids.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
also,
They're
it depends on the age. You're going to.
That's what I want to talk about. Literally very little. Let's see.
So that for me was just picking it up in my
Okay, that's fine.
things loading these days.
Yeah, talk a little bit about AP. Just stuff. Oh, there's a whole. There's a lot of discussion on the online thread.
And they've already won.
That's a good thing.
Well, I mean, what?
You guys on
Yes, most of it. I have like 2 more.
That was like the major topic of this.
Let's move over there.
Yeah, that works. Mainly the second project, and then we can just like cut the video and talk about whatever.
I can do that.
Would be helpful. Spot.
What's another feedback?
I'm gonna look at it really quick actually, just to see what is being discussed. Ooh, no, that's one.
Spreadsheet. Frogger, that's not our project.
Huh. This is interesting.
I did want to do that though because I
like that comment.
I did ask everyone on the coworkers why they got into computer stuff, and
Yeah.
it's all because of video games.
I know, right?
It's like, oh, I need to install this game, and it's telling me something about extended memory manager, and like, I had to figure out memory structure just to play this damn game.
I'm gonna move over here because the hot air.
Oh, really? You're not cold?
No, actually, it's quite warm right now.
Somebody asked me, how are you adjusting to Southern California? And I'm like, literally the only thing I consistently feel is hot all the time.
Yeah?
Like, I feel like I'm just always overdressed.
Layers. Just like Northwest.
I guess so, yeah. I'm still like,
Lighter layers.
I'm used to my like New York extremes.
That's
We have no extremes.
humidness.
Yes, and then very cold in the winter. Cool. So, just wanted to talk about the second project. Discuss CS Unplugged very quickly as a cool thing that I think would be good in your class in particular. And then that's it. And then we can just talk about whatever. So, I guess from doing this, you probably noticed that this project is really hard and large.
Large. It's not as hard as I thought it would be.
Really?
But it's
Okay.
large.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it does.
And so the spec that you guys had, and maybe we already talked about this last time, is like the highest end spec that exists. Like it's from a class that like all their kids get 5s, and it's like really, really robust. And the point was, in that way you could see it and then kind of like backtrack if you wanted to and cut some stuff out and then decide like what aspects will and will not work for your class. It is. They don't need to be able to do that entire project in order to be successful in the AP exam. It's like beyond what you need to know how to do. But the first probably like 3 checkpoints are probably aligned to what they need to be able to do. But like load store, sorting, ascending, descending is all kind of like
Exams not even hit loading stuff required.
yeah, it's all like extra, but cool extra stuff too if you have kids that are ahead.
Yeah.
So just curious to hear from you guys like what your thoughts are on like where you anticipated students struggling or like what you if there was anything that you would present ahead of time to get them ready, or just like?
Let me get that spec out.
And a lot of the text formatting stuff is just really annoying.
Yeah.
Same with the first project too. Can't really get around it.
Yeah, they are both similar in that way.
Well, let's see. Well, do you have a list of the checkpoints?
Love this. Okay.
I thought I had it printed out, but have you guys started?
Would have been.
I can either be blind or hot.
You want this one?
It's
No, no.
it's adversity.
Yeah. Huh?
It's adversity.
I know it is.
So you have.
Yeah, the first checkpoint, not hard. It's string checking that we did in the first project. Not hard. Printing leading row and column, you know, we're gonna cover printing stuff in like a second week. That's fine. Commands to set and display cells. This is when we started to get into inheritance. And so we'll definitely have to start talking about classes and abstract methods and overriding abstract methods. That is a little hard because there's ways to teach inheritance that are like the right ways to do it and wrong ways to do it as far as the paradigm of inheritance is supposed to go. And I kind of feel like we'll have to cut the corners there in terms of getting them to realize how classes are related in that sense. The clear command is going to be easy because that's just locating. By then they'll have an idea of what the underlying representation of the spreadsheet itself is and how to focus on that. And then how to access an element in whatever the array or whatever. And then persistence for save and load is not going to be hard because the helpers did all of that. The hardest part is going to be including it, and then making sure that they understand what an interface is, how to implement it, and the fact that they have to actually write the methods that are referred to in the interface.
Right.
And then what it is that they want to write to the file and how to read it from the file. And the reading from the file is going to be easy because by then they'll already have been using the scanner object to read from strings or from the console in. And so reading from the file is just the same thing. They've already done string numbers. Number 4 is actually going to be the hardest part as far as what I've gotten up to. I haven't done the sort part, so I don't have any opinion on it yet. Because the way I did it, when it comes to an infix equation, is to convert it to a postfix equation and then process it that way. And so that requires knowledge of stacks. You already know how to do string parsing, so that's going to be easy. And so that'll take some time to kind of set up. But the benefit there in doing it infix to postfix is that now they can actually extend beyond specification and handle reference special things that the specification is not actually asking for. The cell references are going to be easy as long as we kind of get them to realize that they have to pass or make accessible the spreadsheet as a whole to each individual cell, and that's just kind of a scope thing. And then summing and averaging, as long as they know how to have things averaged.
Right.
And I haven't handled 6 yet, so I don't have an opinion on it. And the rest of it is like, are you going to design around exceptions? Are you going to deal with return values? That kind of thing, which by the time they get to the point where they really have to test for that kind of stuff, I've hopefully introduced it to them. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be too hard. There's sort of enough feedback in the way that, in the view part, that they won't get totally lost in it. But I don't think, personally, that 1 month is enough time for them to be able to do it. I think this kind of needs to be drawn out a little bit more so that not only do they have more access to the computer to be able to do the actual work, but because then they can not be really rushed especially around Christmas time because
Yeah,
they're
this
on
comes
holiday.
right around then. Yeah.
They've got already probably like their final or semester exams to worry about, so this is kind of a whole lot of work for them to just put in that one.
Yeah, that, and I think there's like tons of flexibility there for how you guys want to schedule the due dates.
Yeah.
What's the football season?
Football season is starts at high
Dorsey.
school. Yeah, it's probably started already, right?
That. Did it start already?
I'm sure their practices started.
Yeah,
already.
their practices for everything started already.
Yeah.
They started like the first day of school, but I don't know when the season officially starts. I'll have to check that on Monday.
I think
And then I'll
it's
tell
pretty
you.
close to college as far as its
Okay.
schedule goes, and if
Yeah,
that's the case,
that's
it's
all I thought.
the first January beginning part. I think
Correct.
is usually when around the time that ends. I don't remember.
But
when,
there's, like,
specific-
3 students in there who are in sport, or who are in like football, I think,
Really?
or 3 or 4.
Okay.
The first 4 at the first 2 tables I know have sports. They have their big duffel bags with them.
yeah.
The rest,
That's all I recognize too.
yeah.
The kids with the big double bags must be the ones who are.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, usually by Christmas you'd already be in basketball season.
And even basketball is
Yeah,
practice.
Oh, because
Yeah.
yeah, Dorsey's.
Yeah, because it's Dorsey in sports.
exactly.
Like that's the first thing when I first read about it. But
But we're not going to be expected to make huge accommodations for them, right?
No,
That's an
they still have to get
extracurricular
that
activity.
work done, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I would just be aware.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Or,
gonna
like-
totally- not my problem.
Okay.
As a general comment about going over the book and stuff, like maybe like a half page about what is a computer, and then go straight into programming. And it's like, I don't know, there's no discussion of like how computers work, or the CPU and memory and disk and any of like the tool underlying all this, and it's just straight into Java. And it doesn't talk about bit like when you were doing that stuff, it's not in there. And I think maybe there's no story up to that point on what is a low level assembler, and then how it leads to like a high level programming language. There's no connect between like, oh, we're just writing these things and something happens, and then what is even going on?
It is because the book is Java. It's not computer
Right,
science.
right.
So it just kind of glosses over like that.
But none of that stuff is tested anyways, right? Like,
It's interesting. There is the curriculum. The College Board has a unit on that in the curriculum. I don't think they test it at all, but they expect you to cover it anyway. So it might not be a bad idea to just at your discretion, insert that stuff in. Yeah, particularly like what is a computer and how does it work. It's probably helpful for them to know.
Yeah.
Or interesting.
it gave me a good idea of like, let's open up a computer, point at the parts, and then you made me think, okay, we didn't even talk about like how these parts work together and what are the different elements.
Yeah. We were talking in intro actually. There's
Yeah.
like
The intro,
yeah.
the classes did that. He brought in a bunch of computer parts and had them all.
And then like there's this other activity, and whether you want to go down this road or not, where like after they learned what all the parts were, they like had kids essentially role play these different parts and go through a computation. So like, okay, if you're gonna add these two numbers, like where do these numbers go, and like who's responsible for doing what, and they can like see how it all works. So
I don't think the high school kids are going to be all too for that
I wouldn't
one.
underestimate it. But yeah, you just gotta sell it. You sell it as like this is a serious important thing we're doing. They'll be like, okay, I used to have my kids tweet the hashtag turn up for science.
Turn up for science.
The vegetable turn up or turn up?
Turn up.
Okay.
Like turn up. They would say turn up a lot and it irritated me. So I was like, all right, we have to like your homework assignment is like take a picture of your lab and then like tweet it with hashtag turn up for science. And I just kept saying it, and then they like at the end they like thought it was fun and they would like tweet other stuff with that. So you just gotta sell it.
Create your own classroom.
our goal was to kill the phrase, but it didn't work.
It didn't work. They started to enjoy it even more.
Yeah, we were like, just kill the phrase 'cause it's so
That
annoying.
seems kind of be the way it works in general, right? You want to get rid of something, but you can't ever do it because you end up bringing more attention to it.
Right, it didn't work. It was like a teacher's school-wide, multiple teachers, didn't work out. But anyway, yeah. So I think like as to whatever degree you want to bring that stuff in, or like if I think it's even good if you feel like you've been doing a lot of like really Java-y stuff for several days in a row. Maybe just like break it up for a while. This is relevant and concrete. And now we're gonna program some more. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. There's one thing about this that I want to make sure we like that you're thinking about is the idea. So there's things that you obviously want to have kids design before they start writing this program because it's huge. But one of the things to think about is, let's say you see kids going down the wrong path. Like, to what extent will you allow them to do that? And also, like, do you want them to design having read all the checkpoints and making sure, like, they can build checkpoint 1 in a way that is not conducive to doing one of the later checkpoints?
Right.
And, like, to what extent are you okay with that, as opposed to, like, wanting them to have a really clean design in the beginning that allows them to do lots of things?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's.
That was my question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's see. If you leave it to the student to try to come up with the most optimal design that allows them to extend it, that's not something they're thinking about. It's like, how can I extend this design? They're looking at what you ask them to do, and they're just doing that. So I think it's kind of impractical, or in general, just to say, do it this specific way, but keep in mind that 2 months later, I'm going to ask you to do this completely this thing that you have no idea about, and expect them to be able to plan like that. So we can kind of hint them, or give them hints to kind of steer their design in certain ways, which will make it more extensible. But I think really kind of allowing them to accomplish the task that they have in front of them is the most straightforward way to do it. It's the least easy way for them, because they have that task right there. But that being said, there's got to be a good way to transition between all the checkpoints so that they can look at their design and realize that maybe it was not the best way to now accomplish this particular new set of tasks, and that they have enough time to be able to go back and do the kind of redesign that they need to do. Or we could potentially provide them with a baseline for that checkpoint, but that's harder. It's more work for us to have to do that. Well, not technically work, technically done. But it's harder for them to have now their project and another project and try to figure out how that project worked, and then just kind of like copy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, some percentage are just not going to get stuck at a point, and then do you just like provide them with a working version of checkpoint 1 so they can move on to checkpoint 2?
Yeah.
Or they just start
some kind of versioning so that you let them go in or stray to a certain point. After that, if you want to continue that path, that will be a different version. You just stay on. You bring them back by saying, okay, this is where you actually have to stay, so that you can go to completion, point of completion. Otherwise, if they fork too far, and you catch them to the point where they're forked too far, then to bring them back is just.
So we have to step the assignment in such a way that they're not expected to extend it way so far, and to the point where it's just impossible for them to come back and reconcile with anything else. But yeah, I mean, if we do make all the pieces depend on each other, we do have to have some kind of baseline for the students who are not able to do whatever.
And at that point, like you said, you just overwrite with working code.
Otherwise, they're just done.
They're
They're not participating anymore.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And then we have those dropouts because we should constantly, I think, especially in our class setting, we should have it back of mind that we're actually selling the idea of computer science. At the same time, we're prepping them for something bigger, which is AP as they can call it.
Yeah.
They just can't. I mean, yeah, we don't have the luxury of having them fork apart. They'll have to be put them back.
So maybe we can take these checkpoints and even further subdivide them into smaller bite-sized tasks with sufficient time to be able to do.
Yeah, that's really a good idea. And the other thing to consider is whether you will show them all of the checkpoints at the beginning or just like introduce them gradually.
In that it becomes intimidating for them to see all the stuff that they have to do over the course of a month or two, or...
Well, it's trade-offs, right? Like, if you show them everything, it's good because for the kids that can plan a little bit, they have this, like, bigger picture.
Yeah.
But then, alternatively, either they're like, I don't even know what that means, so that's scary, or they're just, like, huge, or overwhelming, so... yeah, just, I mean, I think I've seen it done both ways, but it's something to think about.
Yeah. I think if the end result of this project was something that was really graphically appealing, that interactive, stuff like that, it would be a good benefit to show them the finished product and be like, hey, this is what you can do. But this is a spreadsheet, and that's not very exciting. So, I mean... It would be different if it was like a game, or even a windowed spreadsheet using Swing or something like that, something they can interact with. I think you show them finished products. I don't see how they're going to get terribly excited.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to show finished projects so they understand functionality, or so they can just be like, oh, I have affirmation that mine is on the right track.
Right.
But yeah, the excitement value may not be there for this project.
Not so much, yeah.
However, that segues well to this, which maybe I'd also mentioned. So last year there was a class in Seattle that they did Frac Calc, and then they were like, these kids are not going to like this spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so they designed their own project.
Okay.
And it is, where is it? Is it here? Yes. It's called Eagle World. And I should put it in PDF. Sorry. It does kind of the same things, but it's a game kind of. It's a world, I guess, that is like ASCII printed out, and it has different types of characters in it that behave different ways in response to commands.
Okay.
And so the idea is that you are typing in commands, and then at every iteration the new world gets printed out.
Okay.
And you're manipulating it. So it's like very similar, I guess, to
text, like old bulletin board game kind of thing.
Yeah, and so
there we go.
Exactly. I don't love this view. All right. And so it's like this. It's like an ASCII world, and then there's all these different types of objects or whatever you want to call them. So first it's like build the actual world. And it has to say welcome to Eagle World and then print this out and then ask you for a command. And then they start introducing characters. So then this first one is like, I guess this is actually the player. And you can move it with commands. So at every iteration it just like moves. And then there are all these types of guys. I think at one point there's money of some sort. At one point I think there's grass, and then there's like somebody that cuts the grass. There's a robot, and like there's all these commands for each of these characters, and different things happen in the world, and you have to like process them.
Right.
And so they did this instead, and it went like their class was like derailing around this point, and then they did this project, and it was like very good.
Okay.
So that would be an alternative if you got the sense that you were looking for something more visually fun.
Yeah.
I like this better.
Yeah.
So it's up there, and then he has like his finished code for it too, if you want to just like see the solution. But yeah, this is the general idea. Here's the grass, and the grass like grows at every stage or something, and then there's a
Farmville.
Oh, and then there's bunnies, and the bunnies cut the grass.
The bunnies cut the grass.
And so that's something like that. Yeah. So this is like the spec for it. So that I think it's really cool.
I think this appeals or aligns a little more to the expectation is that definitely has to be cool.
And I mean, it is still Java.
Students in the class too. Yeah, it is still Java.
Do kids even use spreadsheet? Do how experienced with it. What
Hardly.
right?
Very little.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
it's,
not even sure I had
Okay,
a lot.
so
of
well, this assignment was very similar to one of the first Java assignments I did in college. So this is a college level kind of thing, but it's also in AW2 and all that, which is not that great. But this, I think, definitely has probably a little more appeal. I'm sure we can.
It'll
figure it out.
connect to them more, anyways.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, because they assume, anyways, that they're learning how to create games immediately when they think of anything computer related.
Yeah.
It's games.
Yeah, it's
Not
immediate
supposed to be. It's not
games.
supposed
Right,
to be.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's not
Perception.
supposed to be, but it's something where they will learn and they will still be comfortable learning how to do it.
The two things I would say, well, there are two, I guess, important things. One is that it's called Eagle World because the mascot was eagles.
Mhm.
So I would tweet that.
what is the Dorsey mascot?
Like
I
a
have no idea.
leprechaun,
It's
Dawn.
he's
thing.
not a leprechaun.
Isn't that
He
what
has
it
a
is?
big.
The
he's
Dons.
not-
Oh yeah,
he's
Dons.
a Don.
Like Zorro or stuff.
Oh, like Dawn. I got it. Interesting. Well, there you
Is it
go.
Like a mafioso Dawn.
I don't know. It's like Don Quixote Dawn.
Yeah, with the big hat.
It's like a knight.
No, it's like a knight,
right?
with
A
little
Caballero
outfit.
Andante,
Yeah,
traveling
yeah,
knight.
yeah.
There you go. So then that's
Don's
one
World.
thing.
Don's World.
The other thing I would say is that they wrote it and they taught it one time, so I would just go over it closely and make sure that you think it's high quality and like maybe you need to edit some things.
Yeah, change it.
It's not. I mean, the other project has been taught and iterated on several times, so it's a good option, but it's still kind of a draft. So, but yep. So that's a good alternative, I think. And then the actual code is here too. So this is all in week 5. Week 5 is like a dump of a lot of stuff. But anyway, so that's pretty much that. Is there anything else I particularly wanted to say? Oh yeah, right.
I don't know how you could eliminate checkpoints because that's. You give the student a project, and what are they going to do if you don't have it structured for them?
Well, not so. Meant more to say you can exclude certain checkpoints.
Oh, I see.
So rather than having all 6,
No, yeah.
you could have had fewer.
Eliminate
Oh,
checkpoints.
not the idea of checkpoints. No.
We're actually planning to have more checkpoints.
Yeah, see, that's why.
Right, yeah,
when this
that's-
came up, I'm like, no, that's not going to
Interpreted, yeah. Free for all.
That's what it says.
And then this is what you guys were talking about. It's like providing starter code if kids are stuck.
Yeah.
Giving them this project is hard, so giving them time in class to work totally okay. Maybe a few days per checkpoint to just catch kids. And yeah, it's more about the concepts than it is about making a spreadsheet. So.
What Ms. Bradford was saying was that we probably will also have to work out once in a month kind of thing on Saturday, just like we did today.
Mm-hmm.
That we show up at 12 or something and then stay 2 or 3 hours.
To hash
Or
out.
to hash out, to catch up with kids, because that way kids who have questions or
Like
kids
lab.
will yeah.
With the kids?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would
Well,
be
I'm
at
gonna
12,
be
or-
there anyways. Woohoo!
It's not like starting at 10 or is that the intro classes?
Yeah, her intro is 10 to 12. I don't know if we
On
would have
Saturdays?
them there on the same time. Yeah, when she starts it, it's 10 to 12.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I was confused if it was just us talking about stuff or us working with kids
Working with kids
to catch up on like project work.
to catch up on project work, or where some kids are just need help.
Yeah. No, that's
So they-
after school and
Yeah.
before school.
So they'll be after school. I mean, Dr. Amadi and others who are helping out, they'll probably be able to help. And then
Or
if there's
not.
still some kids, exactly. If there's some kids who are still not able to help, then
And Dr. Amadi is not at the point yet where he's able to really do much.
Yeah.
but, so we'll have to. So the suggestion was that we show up once a month at least.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
That's
As long as it's on all day.
The other thing I know
That's a
people have
ticket.
done has been like online during office hours. So kids are after school, if they can just like chat with you online if they have questions.
Yeah, I don't know if that
If you
would
have, like,
work
certain
through
available
LAUSD's firewall. but,
Oh, that's
yeah.
possible. Actually, yeah. Lots of things don't work. It's a really restricted firewall.
Yes.
I think USD restricts like
Everything.
Probably. I mean, I
everything.
was talking to somebody a district administrator, and he said that it is a larger district than 35 states.
Yes.
I get that.
So that's like, if I were running a district of that size, I think I would have things on lock.
Yeah, but like, oh my god.
But also, just the policy of student contact also is.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's totally a liability thing, and that makes total sense. But like I gotta have the office SSA, SAA, whatever, call the district to do this thing on my behalf because I can't call them to do it on my own because it's just.
Oh, like
my
the
fingers on a
fingerprinting.
plate, you know,
Yeah, the
that's-
fingerprinting.
Yeah.
That they have to call and make the appointment for you.
Yeah.
You can't just
So
call and
many
make your own appointment.
hoops and hoops that are on fire and hoops that are covered in broken glass that you have to jump through
Second.
just get stuff done. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, even small districts are difficult, but the second largest district in America is full of
And
bureaucracy,
it's not
not
offering
surprisingly.
AP computer science class.
What's the first word?
New York. You're close. Yeah, it's. I mean, the scale of LAUSD and just like wrapping my head around it is consistently amazes me. But yeah, actually, on a totally unrelated note, I was talking to them about this 3-year plan that they want to have, like, roll out AP Computer Science in 20 high schools over 3 years, and like whether TEALS could be a part of it and all this stuff. So it's definitely on their radar.
Here in LAUSD, they're
Yeah,
doing
really.
20
Well, that's their goal.
Just roll out AP without anything.
Well, they are building a K through 12 pathway with Code.org, I guess, is like the bigger picture. Code.org is all K through, well, it's like K through 10, I guess you would say.
Hey, but starting in the kindergarten.
Yeah,
level
they have,
is
and I
still
think
big.
even pre-K, maybe?
That's too early.
Is like
That's
stuff that they're
Sure,
coming
they're
out.
like, wait,
You're supposed to
you're
go
getting
outside
them ready
and like
too
have
early?
recess and stuff,
Nah,
not sit on
dark
smartphones.
rooms.
they're changing that. Yeah, they're
No,
totally
it's-
changing
it's
that.
very,
Kids
like-
don't need sunshine and happiness.
It's very
Vitamin
logic-based
D.
at a young
Jeez.
age. It's like integrating, there's like 10 lessons in like pre-K and kindergarten that you integrate into like math class or something.
Why?
That's like to teach the right types of logic, and then as you go up, it becomes more and more specialized. So they just agreed with Code.org to like build out this K through 10 or something pathway up until right before APCS.
Yeah.
So then they're like, well, we anticipate that in 3 years we're going to have all these kids now that are ready for it,
Yeah.
and they want to like systematize the rollout, and
Are
In
they
3
gonna-
years.
that is the ambitious goal. 20 high schools in 3 years.
Who's going?
LAUSD.
Well,
Yeah.
good luck to them.
So if they're doing it in one school this year,
Yeah, there are, I
What are they gonna do
believe,
next year?
a total of 13 high schools in LAUSD that teach APCS, but they're all in
everywhere.
yeah, like the places in LA where you expect to have
Okay.
APCS.
So they just want 7 more, or they want 20
They want
on
20
top?
more. They want to train, and it's more of like we want to train 20 teachers. So
Yeah.
it's very ambitious.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
That's like that's what they would like to see happen.
Okay, well,
Um,
it makes sense. I mean,
so-
LAUSD, this is this place to do it. You got so many teachers and resources.
And
It's kind of a
so-
shame that it's not bigger scale
Right.
than it is now already, but you know, San Diego had it 20 years ago. What happened to LA? Come on.
So it should be interesting, and so I suspect that they'll be interested to like understand how TEALS works in this school and whether it's the right solution. Not that there is really any other good APCS solution. But yeah, so anyway, huge digression, but that's exciting. The only other topic I wanted to mention is CS Unplugged. So I don't know if you guys have already checked it out at all, but perhaps not. But if you go to csunplugged.com, I think is what it is. From that, I just told everyone that. Yeah, it's a series of lessons that cover computer science concepts without computers. And they have like
Warm up.
they have like videos and like of kids doing it, and sometimes they're younger kids, but it works for anybody. And
Oh,
then
so
they
this
have
is that bit example.
yeah.
Examples here.
And then they have lesson plans, and it's like pretty awesome. They have extensions and just like a lot of resources. So if there's a particular concept that they have a lot of stuff for algorithms, there's actually a piece of paper over there that has 3 procedures on it that like commonly are used. So this is a good place to go if you're like trying to break up coding or like have a day where you can't get on computers, or if there's a concept that you just want to like make more concrete. Yeah. And so this is one place, and I was just alerted to the fact that Code.org also has. How did we get here? I guess learn.code.org, that's helpful. Has a series of unplugged lessons that they just created in various topics. So,
Ooh, I like that.
it's like I'm curious actually what this will be. but I just found out about this today, so I didn't know it existed. But they similarly have like a video, and then they have a lesson plan that's like detailed. It's like, this is what you need. Oh, tangrams.
Yeah, because we all have tangrams.
Bet you could find some. Or, ooh, paper.
I like paper.
And, you know, they tell you how to elbow partners. They tell you how to introduce it.
How do you introduce them?
I believe elbow partners is a activity in which you ask kids to like touch somebody, something about like you touch the person next to you with your elbows, and then you guys are elbow partners.
And then you're.
And yeah, there's all these questions. Can you fold 16 equal rectangles to a sheet of paper? Can you find different ways to do it? I see how this is going. Okay. And then they have all these like things that you can do differently depending on how old your kids are. So it's kind of cool. Good place to go if you're looking for.
This is more like third grade, fourth grade. How you cut this shit out of the construction paper and put them together.
Yeah, they use learn.code.org for the middle school stuff.
So, and I have never really looked at code.org's ones, but these ones I think are pretty cool, some of the CSN plugged ones. And you can kind of take them, there's like ones on like sorting algorithms, search.
Yeah, sorting algorithms would be fun.
Yeah, you can have kids like sort each other.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So,
stand up.
So that's a good, it's a good thing to have in mind. It's like you don't always have to be on the computer.
Right.
That's all. That is all of the scheduled programming I have for AP.
All right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign up for the video. Those of you online, congratulations, you finished summer training. And I will see you once your class starts. It hasn't yet. And then I need to also